Welcome, everybody, to the first ever inaugural episode of the Rise and Fall Football Fantasy Podcast, where this is going to be a fantasy football focused podcast where we break down pretty much every single matchup. And I say pretty much, I mean every single matchup from week 2. We're going to go through every single game. We're not going to go hour on each game, but we're going to give you guys as much information as we possibly can to help you guys and educate you guys on maybe some potential picks to pick up on the free agent wire, or as well as the start and sit-ems for each week. The idea here, guys, is I don't want to be the same cookie cutter pieces of shit that, are on NFL Network and have to make these corny jokes. Like, that's not what we're doing here, guys. I want to look at
You're
this.
A real piece of shit, Morty.
Real piece of shit, Morty. These guys, they try to relish, they try to change or try to make it like entertaining to like a really goofy way, as if I was like watching as a 5-year-old. And I don't want to do that, man. I want to break down these things by teams, by really getting an idea of who may be able to step up if you guys have injuries. There were a ton of them that we'll talk about. And then the week-by-week matchups. Too many injuries this week. It's crazy. I think, we're starting to see a little product of no preseason games or no.
Fully agree, yeah.
No preparation. But before we do that, you guys already saw his face pop up. You've heard his voice pop up. I wanted to introduce my good friend, my brother from another mother, Matthew Ferreira. Help you.
Help me.
I don't know what the hell. I'm going to help you. You help me. We're going to help each other today.
We're going to help each other,
yeah. Things going on. How you doing, bud?
Not too bad, man. Not too bad. Can't complain. Just enjoying a little bit of dinner here. But, I'm more hungry for all the information the Rise and Fall pod is about to drop on all of its faithful followers right here.
And I can sit here and talk to you about all these awesome picks, or the obvious picks, if you will. But I want to find the ones that are going to help you win these leagues, the ones that no one's going to talk about now, but 5 weeks from now, it's going to be like, holy shit, this guy won me a championship. That's what we're going to do.
What he's saying is, for those of you old enough to have watched the original, the true Aladdin, he's looking for the diamond in the rough.
Oh man, I should have gotten that clip and played it, for this.
That actually should be something.
You know what I'm saying? Like that'll be a new sound bit for when we get our diamonds in the rough every week. But to that point, I'm glad you brought that up, because essentially when we go through these teams today, we're not going to go through every single player. We're not going to go through every single situation. What we want to do is key in on the situations that make the biggest difference, right? And figure out if there's people that need to be either added or put in your lineups. At that point, me and you are going to determine. I have some guys in mind. I'm sure there's some people on your mind just watching.
Oh, yeah.
About putting these guys on the high-end list, the fab list. Now, of course, we both don't want to give our guys away, but we want to give a consensus list of people that you should be targeting. So with that theme in mind, before I got into this, I wanted to spend just a couple minutes, because like you said, there is some interesting news. We spoke on this a little bit before we started. A lot of injuries, a lot of people out, a lot of people need to be picked up. Tonight's waiver wire is going to be a very important one for week 1 for a lot of people. Especially with the way this season has started with the COVID-19 and so forth.
And one thing I will say, I don't think we're going to give you full-on amounts on what you should spend of your fab budget if that's where your league runs. And it should be the way your league runs, because it's by far the best way to do the waiver wires.
Right.
However, the piece of advice I will give here is don't be afraid to spend in the beginning. Don't go completely insane. But if you think the guy is a good fit for your team, there's not going to be a better week in the beginning. You know what I mean? When we're seeing these injuries to kind of pick somebody up. You might not get this opportunity again. So don't be afraid just to be stingy so you can have an extra $20 when you're out of the playoffs at the end of the year.
100%.
You got the money, spend it now. Don't be afraid. Just don't go completely insane. Don't spend $100 on a guy just because he's available. But, try and gauge it, and don't be afraid to spend a little extra.
And listen, if you're not sure who to spend that money on, well, that's why you're here. Because Matt and I are going to tell you who you should spend that big money on and who you shouldn't. The first one, of course, we're going to talk about. I know you have stock in him. I've had stock in him. Michael Thomas. The report really recently, as of 2 hours ago, I believe.
Yeah,
he's
barely.
Missing. It's worse than they thought. He's going to be missing multiple weeks.
High ankle sprain, this is the kind of thing that you never, ever want to see. This is honestly what deeply affected Saquon Barkley last season. It's not a good injury. It's a tough one to come back from, just because it's, there's no certain area where you're not putting weight on your ankle. there's not really much that can be done to alleviate this. So, we're going to show you some options here.
Here we go. Yeah, and to point on that, it's high ankle sprains. From what I don't think I've ever had a high ankle. I never had a low ankle sprain.
I feel like you would know.
Yeah, you would know.
Yeah,
exactly. You would know high ankle sprains are annoyingly annoying, right? To come back
from.
They're so annoying. They need to be annoyingly annoying, right? And that's a bad injury. The second I heard he was going to try to play on it, that's when I was like, oh God. Now, just because I am a team that needs a wide receiver, in my opinion, I'm super interested in this next note. Allen Robinson, not happy with the trade talks the contract talks going on in Chicago. It was reported originally that he was looking for a trade. Now they're saying he's not. Whenever that gets floated around, that's going to be a fishy situation. Clearly, regardless, he's unhappy.
Yeah.
Does a team try to go trade for them? Would you trade for Allen Robinson? Because I absolutely would.
Would I, as a fantasy team owner or an actual?
No, sorry. In true professional, outside of fantasy.
Yes. If I thought I needed help at receiver, how tall is Allen Robinson?
6'3".
You know something? He's 6'3". Yeah. Honestly, if I'm the Giants, I'm making that call right now, just because it's clear to me we need kind of a big guy to bully people out of the way. Much as I love the receivers we have, I think Darius Slayton's great. If I'm GM of the Giants, because that's obviously the team I follow the closest, I'm putting in a call. I think any team worth their money is going to put in a call for due diligence.
I 100% agree, and I think the whole report about they're not going to he's not looking to be traded now, blah blah blah. I'm like, you're backpedaling now. Now you're like, what? I guarantee you, the second people heard that, there was like 10 teams that called them.
Oh yeah,
and then they're like, oh shit, we don't want to get rid of this guy. We just want to kind of strong arm him, and it's not working.
Honestly, though, it wouldn't be. How long are they in the hole for that Trubisky trade? Like that had to have hurt them for a while long term. It wouldn't be the worst thing for them to pick up a couple extra picks.
I mean, I don't think they've sacrificed early round picks. I think they lost like a third and fifth. I think they're past that with the Trubisky. They didn't really go up. They only went up 2 spots from what I remember. So I don't think they gave up a first or anything for Trubisky. But they did give up picks for Nick Foles. They did give up some other picks for quarterbacks overall that I think they could use some stuff.
I don't know why I thought that trade went into when they moved up. I don't know why I thought that still went into this past year.
I can fact check but I'm pretty sure it's like
no. I'll take your word for that because it's like it just seems like it was more recent than it was, I guess. But yeah, either way, I'm putting in a call.
Yeah, 100%. Now back from a fantasy standpoint, I'd be super curious, especially from Allen Robinson. Do you try to buy high right now? Or sell
Could
high,
it be worth it?
Or sell them, buy low, sell high?
I'd say I would probably hold on and wait to see if and where he goes. Because imagine if he goes to a team like, I don't know, the Saints, who are in full-on, I'd say, win-now mode. If he gets picked up by them, it starts doing some work, then you're looking great because all those vacated Michael Thomas points have to go somewhere. They can safely put Thomas on IR and, wait for him to get fully healed. He doesn't have to rush back and then be less effective. He could come back just in time for the playoffs. And
I didn't even think of the Saints. And that would be scary because if you get him, right? Let's say Michael Thomas is out. I don't think he's going to be out the whole year. High ankle sprain is bad, but it's not.
I doubt it. Yeah. No, it's something that you need to give it the full attention. If you sit down and rest, depending on the severity of the sprain, you'll be okay. But you can't be out there on it. You can't be trying to do anything really.
Well, I guess I'm looking at this and saying, hey, if we can get Allen Robinson, we're on the cusp. And here, I would argue that because Drew Brees is on his last leg, it seems like. And if he retires, they're going to kind of have to rebuild around someone else a little bit. But you're paying Alvin Kamara, you're going to pay Michael Thomas, or I think he got paid. I'm not even sure yet. He got paid, right?
I think so. There was a lot of
he got paid
big contracts getting thrown around.
Kamara's younger than him. He was a year younger. He came in the league a year later. So Kamara got his, Michael Thomas, because I remember he's being kept in my league, but Michael Thomas couldn't be. So that's how I know. Yeah. I'd be curious if I'm an Allen Robinson owner. I'd be holding on to Allen Robinson with a strong grip, even though some teams might come after
where he goes.
100%, and some teams might come after unless they offer you something you can't turn down, like Hopkins and a running back that you need or something like that. I'm not touching, and I don't know why they wouldn't do that. Yeah. But if there's rumors that certain teams are looking into him, that could boost the value a little bit. And I'd be curious if I might try to dangle something at the guy who has him just to see if I can.
Yeah, just it's worth a shot. And I'll say, just to touch base on that really quick, I was not expecting Hopkins to have that ridiculous of a stat line. Normally receivers struggle a little bit when going to new teams, and especially when you're talking about there's no preseason, there's not that much time to get in sync. Like, whatever they're doing out there in Arizona, the league needs to be very prepared.
I mean,
very prepared, because this is now going to be a very scary offense moving forward as they click and get better and better with time.
I agree. And I think you can really, credit Cliff with that. I mean, a lot of people doubted that team, including myself last year.
Yep.
And I'll be honest with you, I'm thoroughly impressed with what they did now. Now, we'll talk about that, because if you guys see the banners and the jersey and the darn Red Wolves shirt that I have on, there's a team in Washington that I'm pretty damn invested in. And they play that Arizona team this week. It's going to be a fun one to talk about that later. Very different team.
I'm very curious to see that that defensive line against Kyler's mobility.
Do you want to talk about that team first? We could skip down. I don't mind. We could do this any way you want.
It's totally up to you. It's your show.
All right, why don't we do this? You're a Giants fan. I'm a Washington fan. Let's get that out of the way, guys. By the way,
right.
Matt and I we're former roommates. He's a Giants fan. I'm a Washington football fan. I'm getting better. But we lived together for 3 years, and so think about the two of us living literally door from door from each other.
Yeah, we'd come out of the hallway, as soon as there was an update. Did you see this? Did you see this? Are you aware of this? Like,
and it'd be like Sunday morning, 8 a.m. We'd be texting each other from our beds, like, all right, let's talk.
Yeah, just like, I'm not getting up yet. Like, this is important, but it's not too important to get out of bed. Like, just text me back.
And we're always both on the same wavelength with that. Like, if I woke up and was in bed, and we were both like, all right, we're not getting up. And then I feel like when I go to the bathroom, you'd be up.
Yeah, I'd be like, hey, you peeing? You peeing?
Yeah.
You going?
You first, I'm second? All right, let's do this. All right, good. All right, so this is what we're going to do. Because you're here on the show this week, and hey, listen, you're welcome to join me every week, but just in case you're not, let's keep the theme. We're going to talk about the Giants first, because they were the Monday night game last night. I want some instant reactions from you and your analysis, but also then we'll go to the Washington team, and then we'll go back to the Thursday and kind of go back down in order. Sound good?
Fair. Sounds good to me.
Cool. So let me just bring up the Giants game. Now, I know you're going to have things you want to say. I know you do.
You know me. I do love that you put all this in fully color-coded. Can we ladies and gentlemen, can we talk about the dedication of this man right here? That he took all this time to put this much work into this sheet that's going to be updated every single week. Like, you are tuned into a quality, deep information podcast right now. The data you're going to be getting from here will be nothing short of superb.
And I appreciate that. And it's funny because right now it's only like the first stage. Week one, well, we don't have week one data technically, but week two, well, technically we do. We have the week one data here going for week two. So now going forward, we're going to be able to collect data from a week by week basis and determine
see some trends.
Right, exactly. And we're going to be implementing a lot of that. If you guys follow or subscribe to the channel, either the YouTube channel, Rise and Fall Football Pod, on YouTube, or if you guys subscribe to the podcast, leave a review there, and we'll actually give you guys free access to this as we go along. So you'll have this for the whole season if you want to kind of see. And then we're also going to have week by week. So you'll be able to essentially down the road, click on this, let's say this weekly average of 5, and it'll bring up the defensive matchups and what they've done. And we'll kind of be a little bit more connected overall. You want to see specifically what matchup they did last week, you can click on this link up here, and it's going to bring you to that matchup from last week. So we're going to have ways that's going to be interactive. It's going to be fun. But for right now, today, it's a big reference. And Matt, I just clicked on something that I'm sure you don't want to see. 26-16 versus the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Yeah.
Your Giants, your New York football Giants.
Only way to say it.
Talk about them.
Now one of 2 teams with football in the actual name.
I was going to coin a phrase later and go with we are team and just go with team. I just want to be Washington team. That's it going forward. Forget the football part. We know it's a football team. Washington team, baby. Let's go.
Washington team. All right, so where do we start with this? Daniel Jones actually, all things considered, did not have that bad of a game considering he was under constant duress. The big issue that we saw was that pick he threw that really kind of sealed the loss for the Giants. After, I think it was a 19-play, 91-yard drive. It was beautiful. It was
19
masterful.
plays?
I think it was 19 plays.
It was 19.
Don't quote me. It was a lot of plays. Don't quote me on that exactly. I'm pretty sure.
No. But you're right. It was definitely double digits and teens and so forth. But I just didn't realize it would be that far up.
It was a lot, dude. They were eating up the clock. They moved down. It was honestly like it was cardiac giants. But I was like, oh my god, he's gonna get down here. He's gonna what the fuck is it? What was that? No, was pretty much how that course of events went. And I think that was the straw that broke the camel's back. I think the team was rallying. There was momentum going, but it's a sophomore year. Mistakes are bound to be made. It definitely cost us a game, but hopefully he learns and improves going forward. Moving on to – sorry.
Sorry, no, sorry. You're good. I look at Daniel Jones, and you know me. I'm a Washington fan, so of course we're going to sit here and compare Dwayne and Daniel all day.
Yeah.
But I don't want to do that because you know me. I actually, if I remember you telling you right, I like Daniel Jones over Dwayne coming out of the draft.
Yep.
I'll be honest. I loved his running ability. I loved his escapability. I thought, yes, he was going to sling it. He was going to make some turnovers, but that was expected. I will say, and maybe you don't want to say this. I'm sure you wouldn't want to say this, but me, listen, the throws you can learn from, you can figure that out. You can scheme, you can study, you can get better smart-wise. Holding on to the football for him was a huge issue last year. And, he did throw the 2 picks, and the last one did very feel Eli-esque in a way, right?
Oh, God. Eli was smart that. Eli probably would have taken the hit.
Yeah. Well, I've seen Eli make some little fadeaway and just bread baskets.
That's true. Eli's definitely done. I've seen him do some left-handed throws here where it's like, what are you thinking?
Exactly. And so when I see this, I look at this and say, well, there was no fumbles. He only did run the ball 4 times for 22 yards. And, you can say what you want, but 26 or 41, he threw the ball a lot.
Yeah.
And like you said, we'll get into his receiver there, but he has some weapons. He has a couple to work with. Now, there were surprises down this list that I'm looking at, particularly the next 2 guys on this list.
Yes.
But, I think before we get into them, I want to ask you, I watched, I actually focused in when I was doing this last night on that game for the first quarter or so. Then I was kind of in and out for the rest of the game. But I focused on a very important position that I wanted to see from you guys, and that's the left tackle, Andrew Thomas. I saw the blue and white scrimmage for you guys. I'm here in Jersey, so I got to see that. He did struggle a little bit against Carter, you guys, right, in that scrimmage. Yeah,
and Carter, I will say, was actually looking pretty good himself. So that's
I expected it after seeing him in that scrimmage, and he was a beast. Yeah. Dexter Lawrence got a sack, if I remember correctly. Yep. So some of those young guys are starting to pick up that defense, right?
What's his face? Oh my God, Leonard Williams.
Mm-hmm. Yep, and listen, that needed to be a good pick.
He needed to do something, and it's crazy because last year, he's much maligned, but last year he wasn't even that bad, all things considered. It was just the the fact that he shouldn't have gotten that big of a deal from us. We shouldn't have traded for him, but he wasn't terrible once we got him. It just he doesn't get sacks.
Right. The production didn't show the value right away. But it takes, even for defensive guys, it's going to take you a little time to, some people can step 100%. In, they can do it if they give him pass rushers, but this guy's an inside guy I think you guys run a 4-3 still, right? So he was coming from a 3-4 to a 4-3 also. That adjustment took some time. My team, I didn't see it in week 1, but the Washington team transitioned to a 4-3 also. So I was a little worried about the pass rushing side too. But hey,
are something else. I am terrified of that.
We'll talk about that because
we're gonna get to that a little bit.
I think I'm more terrified about what that performance is than you might be, and I'll explain that when we get there. Mm-hmm. But next guy on this list, Saquon Barkley, the stud of this offense.
Oh my God!
Was it?
It wasn't his fault.
Giving the ball? Was it with the play calling?
It's 100% on the play calling, and I said this going back to last year. They have a habit of trying to run Saquon up the gut, which is possible. He can do it, but the blocking needs to be there. And so if you look back at a lot of the tape, a lot of the time Saquon's getting the handoff from Jones, and he tries to take a step forward, and there's 2 defenders in his face, which doesn't matter. He's got all the talent in the world. You know what I mean? And you can't get anywhere. It doesn't matter how escapable you are. If as soon as you get the ball, right? Exactly, dude. Unless he's gonna, Superman, fly all the way into the end zone. But I was calling it all night, and once they finally did, I was like, pitch it to him outside or get him on a screen. He gets that screen pass. He gets that quick dump off from Jones. He takes up 30-something yards. immediately. He's hurdling guys and spinning, doing what he has to do.
I saw the hurl.
You need to give him space. It's absolutely insane to me that Garrett wasn't looking at the playbook like, all right, let's do something. Let's get a pitch or an outside handoff. Let's get something where we can keep Saquon moving, because like then Saquon gets in his own head, and he's done this going back to his days at Penn State, where he tries to do too much. He's like, all right, the team's not going. I got to do something. I got to do more. I got to do more, and that can be detrimental, because if the openings aren't there and you're trying to do too much, now you're getting tackled way behind the line of scrimmage. You're dancing around. You're tired. Like, you know what I mean? You exhaust everyone. So it's really I think the play calling needs to be more efficient and a little bit more creative.
I 100% agree with you. I mean, the fact of the matter is 15 touches, and that was it. You know, I mean,
yeah.
And for 6 yards, at that point, after the 8th or 9th carry, I would have been negative, like, you know what, we got to change something. You know, But I did highlight this on purpose. 9 targets, 6 receptions, 60 yards. Like you said, the second they started passing him the ball,
exactly. He's like, all right.
Do you see that increase, though? I mean, because even if the rushing goes down a little bit, we've seen players that, even though that goes down, the receptions go up, and all of a sudden they're having even a better season than they did last
Exactly.
season.
And if the Giants are predicted to be – I mean, the Giants are predicted to be playing from behind a lot this year. We're going up against a lot of good teams. So if that's the case, then go ahead, dump it right off to Saquon, you know, throw the pass over to him, let him go, let him catch and run and do his magic. Because the biggest issue we're going to run into is staying one-dimensional and saying, okay, run off the gut. Saquon, up the gut again. You know, that box is packed, you can get
and
it.
I feel that pain because Jay Gruden ran a very similar system last year. It was a very I call it an unenthusiastic run attempt. You're basically running these plays that aren't wowing anyone, that aren't, you know, shocking the world, and including the defense, and it's causing nothing. And then not only does it not work, but you fuck up all the momentum that you have, at all, because you're not running it correctly. There's a way to sprinkle in the run game a little better. And the Washington team did this too. They tried to do some things, but they just didn't get it going. And I think sometimes that could be the team that inside you're going up against. But I think this could be, like you said, Jason Garrett. I wasn't really excited for the pick to begin with. And I'm just worried he's going to underutilize a lot of players.
Yeah, we'll see. I'm hoping, you know, Judge has some influence there. Maybe they look at the tape and say, you know what, we really mess up here. We've got to get things going a different way. I would hope that there's a room full of competent NFL professionals, you know, in the Giants, you know, locker room and coaching staff that can look and say, like, okay, here's where we made mistakes. Here's where we could have been more effective. Here's what they actually did give us that we didn't, you know, act on at all. And I hope that, you know, changes and they learn from it and just improve. That's all you can hope at this point.
100%. Now, there was one bright spot from the passing perspective. I know we talked about, you know, Saquon with the catches, but there was another guy who was one of my preseason darlings, and I love him. Darius Slayton, 25 fantasy points. I know one of those touchdowns came in garbage time at the end of the game, but listen, there might be times
garbage time is still time.
Exactly. And you got to be able to do this thing. You got to be able to throw the rock. And I thought maybe he would be the guy to step up. I didn't think he was going to be the premier guy the way he was.
I honestly thought we were going to see a lot more out of Engram for this game. I'm pretty disappointed with him. But I do think Slayton performed, you know, obviously exceedingly well. So as long as he's ready to do it, man, you know, teams don't seem to really be fully prepared for him. The Steelers have arguably the best defense in the league. So I think if he's getting open there, we can expect to see him get open other places too. So, you know, I'm hoping he can be the guy to kind of take the top off. And once teams start game planning for him, and maybe if Engram gets going, that could open up some stuff for Saquon too, which is why I'm not going to harp on this, but I'm going to say it again. We shouldn't have traded Odell.
I agree. And did you hear that there is a little birdie here or there saying that Odell wants a trade, or he might be on the trade block?
Well, that sounds like a shitty situation for Odell to find himself in.
Oh my God. I mean,
I don't believe that's true for the record. Yeah, I don't believe that's true. I mean, did you see the girl, like, you know, not to judge anyone on the looks, but I'm like, Odell could do a lot better. Like,
it's like the doubt is, listen, the quality of this poop that's getting on this guy ain't exactly the best quality poop. You know,
exactly.
That's a big fucking stinker coming out on him.
Yeah, and we're really like, and just the way this girl just came out, like, it was just like, we're really gonna take the opinion of some trashy chick I've never heard of in my entire life. Her name is Slim Danger.
Is that her name?
Wait, Yeah, what are you, a goddamn supervillain? Like, get out of here.
That
What are you
makes
fighting
zero
Darkwing Duck after this? What you got to poop on Odell and fight Darkwing Duck for control of the city? Get the fuck out of here.
I feel like it's
So I don't.
publicity stunt, right? Like it has to be.
It's
I
it's
mean, he's a
got to be
weird
just
dude,
saying
but
something that. Yeah, I don't think there's any truth to this. I think that's why Odell hasn't really come out and said anything. Because like, what do you say? Like, what do you say? You know what I mean?
I like the poops on my chest.
Yeah, anything he says is just gonna make it even worse. It's like, yeah, I sent him a video and I tried to make it sexy. I watched her talking. I'm like, this is Odell could do so much better.
Yeah.
Like I've got to think like from that perspective alone. Like you got to be kidding me.
Like not even up to your standards. And you're just like, nah, but don't touch that thing.
Like I don't think she's someone's baby mama, and I'm like, how?
Like you can get a hotter girl to poop on your chest, man. I mean,
yeah, like come on.
Player.
You know.
I mean, people are into some weird shit now, but like, oh my god,
literally.
Man,
yeah, that's. Yeah, that's a questionable move.
It really is. But so that being said, though, you guys don't have Odell, right? You got Sterling Shepard, you got Golden Tate. Do you see any of these guys stepping up to the table here, or?
Sterling Shepard, great player, obviously really great, but he's honestly just a younger version of Golden Tate. They're both pretty reliable. The issue here is Tate's banged up right now, and Sterling Shepard cannot get concussed again. Like I would worry if I'm him. I'm worried about my mental health, following football. And I think if he gets another serious concussion, he should. And it's just my opinion as a human being. He should consider walking away from the game. He's had so many already in a very short career.
It's kind of like Jordan Reed for me. I mean,
yeah,
God bless him on San Fran's roster.
But like, yeah, it's at some point you've got to think like, is this worth it? Right. You know what I mean? Like you're a second round pick. You got paid. You got to play in some great games. But like, you've got the entire rest of your life for what, maybe a 10-year career. Is that worth it?
I agree. And so going to the projections here, 25 points for Slayton in week 1. They think he's going to have around 10 points. I think he beats that projection.
Yeah, I'd say so.
I'd probably keep these guys. I wouldn't touch, like you said, I wouldn't touch Sterling right now until I know he's healthy, if he's healthy.
Yeah, I mean, and same with Tate. Like Sterling, I think Sterling's going to make great actual football plays. I don't know if he's going to be fantasy relevant, if that makes sense.
I agree. I think the two relevant receivers here are Darius Slayton and Evan Ingram. Even though Evan Ingram had a really down week 1, I actually have him as a maybe potential bounce back riser here in week 2.
It's just he's always been wildly inconsistent, which is why, truthfully, I think from a Giants fan perspective, that's someone we should be looking to move. Like honestly, or at least convert him to full-on wide receiver.
Right.
Have him actually end up as a receiver instead of trying to block, because that him not being able to block is detrimental to the rest of the offense at this point.
I always saw Evan Ingram as like a Jordan Reed clone, even when he was coming out of college. I remember. Even before you guys took him in the first round, I thought he was going to be a high second-round pick.
Jerry Reese thought different.
Hey, listen, he looked great that first year, and he's great if he's healthy. The health is the issue with him, right?
Well, it's the health and the ability to catch consistently.
True. I mean, there were some drops. There were some things there. I think, and I want to put this disclaimer out there before we even go into the other games. I look at this first week, especially this year, as like, this is the preseason game. You can say, you could try to make conclusions of the teams. Reality is the amount of quarters they played was essentially about a quarter more than what they would have done in the preseason. So I look at this game truly as preseason game. And now that we all kind of know what each team has, we kind of get a more better idea. That's why I wanted to do this week 2, not week 1. I knew it was going to be weird this year.
It's almost unpredictable.
Yeah, Eagles are completely unrecognizable from 2 weeks ago. So it's like, if we tried to do it then, it would be ridiculous to kind of determine what's going on. But let's go into the matchup here. They got the Bears this week. Week 2, Mitch Trubisky lighting it up for 24 points last week.
How about that? Yeah, and that came, again, in garbage time pretty much. Like, the Lions were winning most of that game.
He does this all the time, man. He sucks for 3 quarters, and then he comes in the 4th quarter and it puts up like 500 yards. Like, I don't understand why he can't get going. But I'll tell you what I'm not surprised with. David Montgomery, 7.9 points. Tariq Cohen, by the way, guys, this is all 0.5 PPR based on Yahoo stats. So like the Yahoo projection is all Yahoo based. So the way I wanted to do this is to show you the projected overall team values before last week to this week. So, for example, you'll see 79.88. That's what they pretty much put up. There's a couple points here missing from guys I don't give a shit about, right? And then this week they have like the 78. So they think the Bears could be consistent and play and put up, similar potential points and yards or to a degree around there as they did against Detroit. I'm going to argue that maybe it's going to be a little tougher here. And I know you could say, okay, well, it's the Giants and the defense is young and new team, right? But as Matt just said, they have some really good pieces. And I think, like we just said, going into week 2, Jason Garrett and that scheme, I think the offense will get going a little bit more. But the defense didn't look terrible.
Defense didn't look bad. It's like I said, that one throw that ended up being an interception that shouldn't have been thrown at all was what broke the camel's back. I think the Giants were actually pretty poised for an upset right here.
Going back to this team, we talked about Allen Robinson, and now, granted, he didn't have the most amazing week. He only had 5 catches for 74 yards. He mirrored that of Anthony Miller. Realistically, if the touchdown went to him, he would have had a 16, 17-point week and a really good week, right?
Yeah.
To me, the biggest thing here is volume. 9 targets. Trubisky, with that quarterback, you need the volume. And that's why people are going to be really high on Anthony Miller this week. And they're going to be adding him. Some people might throw him in the lineup. And he's looked good. But 6 targets, while it's good, it's solid for any other team. On this team, I just don't think it's going to be enough because it's like you can see. No one's going to catch all those targets. No one's going to go 6 for 6 with Trubisky throwing a quarterback. I can guarantee that.
Yeah, and can you trust them consistently? Because again, these were all garbage time points. Yeah. So who knows how this is going to look going forward? It's just this is a team that if all these pieces were in different places, if you had Allen Robinson on a different team, David Montgomery on a different team, Tariq Cohen on a different team, I see a lot of this going very differently. You know what I mean? I just feel like for this offensive genius that Matt Nagy is supposed to be, we're not really seeing anything that special, which kind of blows my mind. Like, I don't see what the disconnect is. I don't get where the issue is. Was his one, good year an anomaly? Like, what's going on here?
I mean, I just think to that point, you look at Tariq Cohen, and if he got put on like the Saints or even the Seahawks with Russell there, the receiving guy, they would utilize him so well.
Dude, like, even imagine him on like the Ravens. You know what I mean?
Oh my gosh! Like, even the Washington team, who could use a guy like that, who would utilize him very well. Yep. I say that, I hope so, but I think we would utilize him better. I just, to your point, Nagy has way underwhelmed on his coaching. He had a good first year, and he's been holding on that. And I think a part of all this is because they need Mitchell Trubisky to work. They
put so much on him to move up one spot the same year that Deshaun Watson and Patrick Mahomes came out. I agree. They
stayed there and took Mahomes, no third, no fifth. You would have had a MVP caliber quarterback.
And he would just be immediately like.
You don't think Tariq Cohen would do better with Patrick Mahomes, or Allen Robinson would be an all-pro with him? Anthony Miller would be a wide receiver too with Patrick Mahomes. Yeah. Even Deshaun Watson, who I'm not as personally high on. I've had him in fantasy, and he puts up. We'll talk about him because he pisses me off too, and he did it again this week.
I don't even blame him for this week. You traded. Well, we'll wait till we get there.
Right. Now, I will say 2 things before we get on for the Bears and the matchup. Jimmy Graham, I'm not touching. I don't care if he put up a touchdown, 10 points. 7 targets, you only catch 3 for 25. That doesn't impress me whatsoever. 10.5 points, I don't think they do that against you guys. I think you guys play better than that. I really do. Going to now the team of the East. The Washington football team.
The first place Washington football team.
Everyone's going to sit here and shit on us. The Eagles are injured. They don't got Lyman. They didn't have Miles Sanders. They didn't have Alshon Jeffrey. They had no defensive line. Well, guess the fuck what? Go look at our injuries from the last 2 years. 4 games worth.
You guys, you balled out. That defensive line, we discussed this before the season started, that I was like, I am terrified. As soon as I realized the talent that's just loaded up there now just waiting to go off. You guys have, 5 first-rounders? Sitting there just ready to go at a moment's notice. Like, what are you supposed to do?
5 first-rounders, and
absolutely terrifying.
The 5th rounder that's with them might be the best of the bunch in Matt Ioannidis. I mean, everyone talks about the Bama boys, but Matt Ioannidis is the guy who's just the tank in the middle, and we have him on a really good contract right now, which is amazing.
It's so funny because I hear Ioannidis and I hear Leonidas.
Yeah, dude, I love his name. I love the name. I hope he
really might as well be the Spartan,
And he's homegrown, 5th rounder, didn't play well his first year or two. Then he got a chance, and he tanked out. And he's gotten better and better. He averages 8 sacks a year in the inside. He was a defensive end in the 3-4 scheme. He's a D tackle now. But you'll see him in rotation even more than Daron Payne. Daron's the rotational guy. And holy shit, I don't know if you saw the block, but Jason Kelsey's supposed to be this, all-pro center. Daron Payne just manhandled him on this one play, literally like Michael Orred him into the stadium.
Michael Orred him.
That's how it felt. That block, I never saw Kelsey get just manhandled like the way I saw Daron Payne do that this week. You're right. The defensive line is extremely exciting. The secondary played well. Fabian Moreau had a really nice pick that really changed the tone. Jimmy Moreland, who in Washington we call the people's corner, baby, because he's a small dude with a big personality. He plays big, a lot of swag and confidence, but he didn't get the turnovers last year. Now he's starting to do that. Yeah. And we didn't even have Kendall Fuller this week. Now there will be, and I already see it, especially Eagles fans, but a lot of people not discrediting. Some are, Eagles fans and so forth, and other divisional fans. But the national media is looking at it, and they're excited, but they're being a little hesitant. And I am right there with them. I actually believe that is not necessarily I'd rather them have had a decent week against the Eagles and really turn it up. And it's weird to say because it's division rival, right? I'd rather them turn it up against this team this week. The Arizona Cardinals, man, they just whooped the shit out of the NFC champs, okay? And then they whooped the shit out of them. Like Kyler Murray whooped their ass.
Kyler Murray is for a short guy, he's putting in work. I'm going to look that up myself right now.
What do you do?
No. Who's taller between Kyler Murray or Russell Wilson?
I'm gonna throw it out there right now. Kyler Murray. He's 5'9". Kyler Murray's 5'9". Russell
5'10".
5'10".
Yeah.
And Russell Wilson's 5'11".
Still though, that is crazy.
But so before we get into them, going back to the team, going back to this defense, the test for them this week is what I'm so excited to see, more than for week 1, because I knew in my heart I knew this team's going to come out and they're going to eat. And if they do eat, it's going to be because of the injuries to a degree, but also because they are really that good. I think they still would have had a good game even with the linemen there. Maybe not 8 sacks, maybe 5 sacks, right? But even that would have been perfectly fine with me. The 2 picks I think still would have happened. That was one of them was pressure, but the other one I don't believe was. Long story short, do I believe they're going to put up 17 points this week? I absolutely do not. Not against this offense, not against DeAndre Hopkins. I'm praying that we have Kendall Fuller back. But going into the players, offensively, we weren't that exciting. We did what we had to do to win. And it could be
which
possible.
Is all you can ask.
That's all you can ask. And from a fan standpoint, I'm excited. From a fantasy perspective, in my mind, the back of my mind, I'm thinking to myself, is this one of those teams that's going to be like the Niners last year? They were good. Some of the running backs were really good.
But some of them, I actually know exactly where we're going with this, and I kind of agree.
They're a good team on the field for football.
But there might not be anybody worth taking fantasy-wise outside of McLaurin and hopefully Gibson in the future. I think once Gibson gets rolling, things will be a little bit different.
Exactly. So that's actually a great segue into what I was going to talk about first, the running backs. I love Gibson, man. I love him. I'm still excited. The plays that he did get, I saw the burst. And if anyone didn't see the game, I can tell you right now, Gibson, do not drop Antonio Gibson.
Yeah, hold on to him. Because, this team saw something in him. There's a reason he's still there and Adrian Peterson's on. Adrian Peterson just put up numbers in Detroit this week.
It pains me because I'm going to talk about that too, because that pained me a lot to see him do what he did, and I knew he would
But you've got to know, they're building for the future, the level of promise that this team is displaying. And I will say one thing. I think we hopefully see a little bit of a changing of the guard here. The Eagles and the Cowboys, as much as it pains me to say it, have kind of been the cream of the division for a while. The Giants and the football team in Washington both just got basically new life breathed in. But possibly you guys more so than us. But just with these new coaching hires, this new change in direction, it's a culture change. New quarterbacks, new running backs, new receivers both breaking out last year. That they're kind of on a very refreshing path. I don't want to yeah.
You know what we say in Washington? We call it the new Rivera. So
I personally prefer the Fur era.
The Fur era. Hey, listen. You know what? The Giants get to the playoffs and win a Super Bowl. You can say that. All right.
I would love that.
Listen, I'm really excited for Ron. I just want to throw it out there. With what we went through this offseason, it was all I could think all offseason as a Washington fan was, damn, I feel bad for Ron. And that's before the cancer. That was like, I can't believe he has to come in and deal with this. It's embarrassing as a fan to have your new head coach. This is the first impression, right? And then he has the cancer and then all this stuff. And I look at it like it's a terrible thing, of course.
Oh, yeah.
But also be one of those things that sparks this team. And I think we saw a little bit of that at the halftime. This was a team that was an awful second half team. Awful. We last year, this is a fun stat. We were down 17-0 in this game. Last year, week 1 against the Eagles, guess who was down 17-0 at half and then came back and won it?
Yeah, there you go. And there was a specialty stat with that. Like, you might have been one of the first teams to recover from that week 1. Was something?
It was
one
something
of them random
because the Eagles did it last year, but it was like a stat with like them did it last year week 1, then we did it this year to them.
Yeah,
and visiting each of the other stadiums. But what I saw, I want to look at Antonio Gibson's numbers real quick because this is mainly supposed to be about fantasy, right? So
yep.
Week 1, Peyton Barber goes for 2 touchdowns, 17 carries is something that people are going to be like, holy shit, fuck that. I'm going to go Peyton Barber, spend $50.
Do not pick up Peyton Barber. I'm going to say that right now. Do not pick up Peyton Barber. Yes, he's a goal line vulture. What are you going to chase his success? Peyton Barber, the guy. I'll tell you right now because I don't know how much time we have left. If you're going to target a running back this week, I would say, should I say who you should be going after? Nyheim Hines. Because he's got a dedicated role, even with Jonathan Taylor, who I always want to say Jonathan Taylor Thomas. Even with Jonathan Taylor there, he's got a dedicated role. They're making carries for him. He has a part in that offense. And Benny Snell, because if I'm willing to gamble that the Steelers are a little fed up with John Connor at this point. John Connor. With
Terminators are coming after this motherfucker in the house. No, you're right.
But I think Benny Snell showed the best of any of the other running backs, including Jalen Samuel, who actually cost me a fantasy championship by 2 points a couple years ago. So I think those are the 2 guys you need to target if you're looking for someone. Don't try and chase the points with Barber. It's honestly not worth burning a waiver spot or $5.
Exactly, because you could say, he had 14 points. No one else had more than 6. Yeah, that's true. But you know what? He had
29 yards and 17 carries.
29 yards.
Ew.
He had you look at Gibson. Gibson had 9 for 36, so he's averaging 6 yards a carry. He had 2 receptions for 8 yards. That's what I was about to bring up. Hard.
Yeah, and even look at Saquon had a terrible week, but he made up for it a little bit with the receptions. You're going to target a guy who vultured 2 touchdowns with his 0 catches? Come on, not in today's NFL.
And the biggest thing with this new offensive scheme, you have to understand, they had Christian McCaffrey. How did they use Christian McCaffrey? Well, as a receiver and a running back, right? Yeah. And so the idea of why Peterson's gone and why he's in Detroit is because of this category right here for these 2 guys, J.D. McKissick, Antonio Gibson. Between them, they had 7 targets. That is going to go up. You have to understand, the defense also had 8 sacks, right? They were pushing back the offense so much when they punted. We had really good field position too.
Yeah.
We didn't need to move across the whole field at all the entire game. So this number is going to go up, especially against an Arizona team as we go down that has Kyler Murray, who put up 26 fantasy points. He had 91 rushing yards and a touchdown, right? Kenyon Drake, not impressive, but 16 for 16 a touch. Chase Edmonds comes in with a receiving touchdown, so they're going to utilize a similar strategy. And then let's talk about it. DeAndre Hopkins, 16 goddamn fucking targets, 14 receptions for 151 with so many weapons here. I just keyed it down to these 3, Matt, because it just seemed that's the most relevant, right? You know,
Oh
I
my God.
think he replicates that this week if we, especially Kendall Fuller doesn't go.
And it's like I'm honestly, oh sorry, yeah, I didn't mean to cut you off there. I'm astonished because I really thought there was going to be a delay. Like you really don't see receivers come from a different team and immediately have an impact. Now, in my opinion, for the last few years, DeAndre Hopkins has been the best wide receiver in the league. Like I don't think that can really be argued because he was playing with trash quarterbacks, still putting up numbers. Slightly down year last year, but he's still a baller. To see him come in, get 16 targets, put up a career high in receptions, and this is week 1 without any practice, I am terrified of what this offense could do moving forward. Factor into that Kenny Drake and Chase Edmonds, who can take the pressure off at any time. Like those guys can both ball too. Another guy, Kenny Drake, I don't know what the hell. Who was that? Adam Gase was the Miami quarterback.
I think he was. Yeah, I think he was the head coach at the time. Yes, when they traded him.
Fuck Adam Gase. You know, I'm gonna come out and say it right now. Like this guy just clearly doesn't know what to do with talent. He's just like, oh, is Frank Gore still 50? Yeah, let's play him.
We'll talk about it, but I feel bad for the Jets, man. I feel bad for
him. He's wasting their potential. They need to fire him sooner rather than later. It sucks they missed out on all the the cool hirings this year that happened. Like I feel like 2 years ago there was a bunch of head coaches moving around. There wasn't anyone great.
There were some good names.
There's a lot of really good options.
Now, Eric Bieniemy could be the option, the KC offensive coordinator. I think that would be a really good fit for them. They need the offensive side of the ball to work. They
need some kind of identity, and they need to do it soon because they're going to burn through all the potential they have on that team. Like, how are we looking at we're going into week 2 and Le'Veon Bell's on IR.
Right. And
we haven't seen Le'Veon Bell in like 4 years at this point.
And I saw a funny tweet last week before the season started about Le'Veon Bell. And I forgot who, I think it was like Manish Mehta or whatever, that guy that everyone hates in New York that covers, I think, the Jets now. But they all hate him. It's so funny, all the comments I see, they hate him. But he reported something like, or I don't know if it was him, it was someone else. Someone reported something, or they said something like, look for Le'Veon Bell to have just a typical Jets type of year, and it's going to go downhill with Adam Gase. And I thought to myself, I agree with that. And I avoided him like the goddamn plague. I had Cam Akers above him. I had Todd Gurley ranked above him. I had a lot of players ranked above him. And now it's looking like that was a good choice.
Yeah, the thing was, for me, it was about where he showed up. If Le'Veon Bell showing up in the 5th or 6th round, I'm like, I can take a shot here. Because wide receiver is so perennially deep that if you can get a quality running back, if Le'Veon Bell showed even flashes of his former self, then that was worth it at the pick. I could easily justify that, a 6th round pick for maybe my number 4 at that point, because like I said, I go running back heavy. Running back, I would have been in love with that. At that point, he's just trade bait. You can trade him almost on name value alone, which at this point you can't, which kind of sucks. Because with him being on IR, yeah, you could try and find someone who loves him and thinks he's going to bounce back, but I really don't see his ceiling being that high on that offense.
I agree.
So it kind of sucks.
Now, going back to the Cardinals here, we know what Kenyon Drake gives us, right?
Yeah.
Chase Edmonds.
Points.
He was a guy – well, let's go back to last year. Chase Edmonds seemed like the guy before they traded for Kenyon Drake. Then Kenyon Drake comes back. Chase Edmonds gets hurt. Kenyon comes in and dominates, right? This year, it looks like the theme is going to be Kenyon Drake running, Chase Edmonds receiving. With this offense, what they can do is Chase Edmonds, as you can see here, I put the trends here because I want to show, at least from the Yahoo value, some of these guys that are just like not even owned, that are or large, a small percentage owned. Now, 40% is not that small, but it's small. It's under 50, obviously.
Yeah.
40%. I have a feeling he's going to be much higher now. Is he a guy that people can rely on in the flex? Because to me, while I do like him as a receiving threat, I just think there's too many bodies there, personally.
Yeah, you're not wrong. I'm actually still – I just thought about it right now. I'm going to actually put in – oh, wait, this doesn't go up till tomorrow, right?
No, 4 a.m. I think it restarts. I'm not doing my waivers till after.
I'm going to put in a pick on Edmonds just as a mini flyer there because 100%. There is that potential. Kenyon Drake, he's still kind of banged up there. It's worth the shot. If you got the guy, I would take him over Peyton Barber, honestly. I think the upside is
100%. 100%. I think if you're talking about between guys like Peyton Barber, Benny Snell, I would still take over. And we'll get to the Pittsburgh thing, but I do want to piggyback on Benny Snell because there is importance of his pickup this week, not just for a week-by-week basis, because like you said, James Conner is just not trustworthy at all. And there's a really big value. Yeah. So, all right. So let's go back now. We're going to go in order here. We're going to kind of speed up a little bit. I wanted to give a little more depth on our teams because we are big fans of them.
We obviously are. Yeah, we've got more expertise there.
But Thursday night game. No problem. Thursday night game. Bengals, Browns. Both teams lost last week. One lost by a field goal. Bullock missed a game tire for the Bengals to take that thing to overtime. Usually the Chargers are the ones who do that, but now they sent that bad juju over to the Bengals. Meanwhile, the Browns kind of got shit on by the Ravens, right? There's no other way to say it. All right, and Odell, I think Odell would agree with me on this one, right?
Yeah, Odell was maybe excited for it. No,
I
feel like Odell, if you ever listen to this, it's I don't believe it's true. It is funny though.
Listen. I'll be honest with you. I think that was a pun within a pun within a pun, talking about the Browns pooping on Odell. But Joe Burrow or Baker Mayfield, I feel like is going to be the talk this week, right? Baker. I haven't trusted Baker since his rookie year. Be honest with you. I just don't trust him.
Well, and the thing is, this is pretty important for the Browns because they already lost to one divisional opponent and they got crushed by him. They need to respond here against the Bengals, who honestly I think could win. The Bengals are pretty close to winning last week. So I think Joe Burrow looks like he might be the guy. You know what I mean? He's actually appearing pretty well. Mixon, they figured out how to use last year.
But we didn't see that this week, though. We didn't see that this week with Mixon, and that kind of deterred me from him. When I say I had Le'Veon Bell ranked lower, I kind of had Mixon ranked a little lower also. He was on the board in one of my leagues, and I went with Aaron Jones and Austin Eckler, and I'm much happier with those picks. But he was a guy that was going late first round, mid-second round in snake drafts. He was going for around, 40. I saw him go for like $53 in auctions or somewhere around there. He was a pretty high sought-after player.
I agree.
And 19 for 69 seems expected for him, if I'm going to be candid, right?
Yeah, no, I agree.
When I looked at these games, I saw Baker Mayfield, Joe Burrow, who's probably going to be the storylines. But my biggest question marks in these games for me is which receiver is going to step up for Cincinnati, okay? Is Tyler Boyd going to be the guy that we thought he was going to be? Or is A.J. Green going to be anything like he used to be?
I mean, I think the story's in the targets right now. A.J. Green with 9 targets, 5 catches for 51 yards. I mean, it's not quite a return to dominance, but he got the lion's share of the targets. Like, it's not even really a question. Boyd and Ross still got looks, but Ross clearly couldn't haul anything in, and Boyd was efficient.
Boyd, what was concerning with me was when I heard about everything going on was last year, the targets that he got was insane. Like, really up to the roof. And that was clearly going to go down this year with A.J. Green back and then some other guys here who I don't even see on this receiver list, so I'm not worried about them, to be honest. But I expected the volume to go down. I was just hoping that production would still stay and he'd get at least a big play here or there. I'm not going to discredit him yet. If I had a choice, he would be my guy who I would predict to kind of have a good game this week. I think they're going to see A.J. Green, like you said, had 9 targets. They're going to try to key in on him a little bit more. I think people will, if Tyler has a couple bad games, I think people are going to kind of forget because he wasn't a huge name, around the league. Fantasy player owners knew him, last year particularly. But even then, it's like, he was always like a wide receiver too. He wasn't like premier guy.
Yeah. He wasn't quite what they used to have with Marvin Jones. So you remember when Marvin Jones was there and you're kind of like, all right, like he'll do something. That's not quite what we're going to see here with Tyler Boyd, I think. I agree.
And if Denzel Ward playing, I think he is, right?
Is he playing? I'm not sure.
I want to go look right now, but I don't want to bring off.
Here, I'll take a look.
Yeah, if you could look for that, because if Denzel Ward, if he's playing, I'm assuming he's going to be on A.J. Green, right? I would assume that's where they would have that matchup. I could be wrong. They could put him on Boyd, the younger, faster, flasher receiver, but we'll see. I'm thinking that there's going to be a play where Joe Burrow can sling that one in there, Tyler Boyd. And if it's not Tyler Boyd, the guy who's going to get that reception is not going to be A.J. Green. It's going to be John Ross. That's my prediction. I think
it looks like he's active.
He's active. I thought
3 solo tackles last week. Yeah.
Yeah. So Denzel Ward, I'm going to assume is going to be one of those 2 guys. Here's my prediction, I guess. It sucks that you can't say this. You say this now, people aren't going to be able to use it as much. Whoever Denzel Ward's not on is going to have that big play touchdown. Now, maybe not a huge game. Maybe the other guys still have a good game, but I think someone's going to get a go around.
Someone's gonna be open as a result of Ward's coverage.
Yeah,
now,
I think this number goes
unless
up.
we somehow see AJ Green just go Super Saiyan like the old days, But
it could be possible. I mean, if they move him around, I didn't see anything that would make me believe so. Like, yeah, he had 5 for 51, but it wasn't, wasn't anything special. Now, Chargers defense could be good, but they did lose Derwin James. How good are they? I don't know. They have Casey Hayward, so he was able to shut down some players. And I think Casey Hayward lined up a little more on Tyler Boyd. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that was the case. And if that's the case, then I am more confident in Boyd to go out there and play a little better this week. But I'll be honest with you, my dark horse for the first touchdown of the game is CJ Uzomah. I just have a feeling the tight end is going to become.
Oh, very interesting.
I have a feeling he's going to get the first touchdown and snag one away from someone. I do think Joe Mixon is still going to struggle in this game. I think the Browns front is pretty good.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, Mixon's super talented, though. We'll see. This is another one of those things where I feel like if we see him get going, it's going to be in the receptions.
Yep. Now, going on the other side of that, the running back situation for the Browns, in my opinion, is a lot more interesting. Kareem Hunt, Nick Chubb. Chubb had, what do you have, 4 points last week? This is a scary loaded team because even if you look at their receivers, Jarvis Landry, Odell Poopinchest, Rashard Higgins, like they're pretty beasts. I don't know if you just heard me drop that. Yeah, no, I had a second to register as I was fixing something, but
no, I love that you put that in there.
Listen, do they drop the bomb, if you will, this week and lay it on what I think is not really that great of a defense in Cincinnati?
It's just crazy to me that Baker Mayfield isn't succeeding with this just literal bevy of weapons here. Because even they went out and signed Austin Hooper, which was probably entirely unnecessary.
And to that point, what's so sad? Their best player is on IR now, David Njoku. 3 for 50. What was it? 3 for 50 and a touchdown.
Yeah.
The best production, in my opinion, and he's gone. So that actually
it ended up being worth it, but yeah.
Yeah, that does lead me to kind of, who's going to step up and get the yards this week. I actually think that I don't know if you saw the Odell Poopchest is his name on here.
That's what I was talking about before.
Okay, good. All right, I didn't know. I forgot I did that. Okay, good. I do think Odell poops on someone else's chest this week, though, and gets in for a score. I do think he's going to have a good game. I think Landry will have more receptions, but I think Odell's going to have the bigger impact in this game.
Yeah.
And I think he's going to do it early.
And that's the way they've always kind of been. Landry will rack up catches, but Odell's got that breakaway speed where he's just going to – once he gets the ball in his hands, he can go anywhere.
100%. And now in the running back, do you start Nick Chubb this week? I feel like you have to, right? Like you have to.
You draft him, you have to. You draft him in the first or second round. You've got to go with him.
But I'll say this.
He didn't have his stat line's not even that bad. All things considered, it's not what you want. Wait, what did he? Oh, did he have a fumble?
He had the fumble. I
was gonna say that. So I was like, wait a minute. I was like, how did? Yeah, he. But I was like, he was averaging 6 yards a rush,
right?
Which is nothing to sneeze at. Especially against the Ravens, yeah.
The Ravens, right. So it's a really tough defense. You're playing a lot better of a defense. I do think both these running backs eat this week. I actually do like their projections, but I do kind of think Kareem might start to take over just a little bit.
His receiving ability is definitely going to put him,
That's the biggest telling thing here. 6 targets for Kareem Hunt. 1 target for Nick Chubb.
There's clearly a role carved out for him to be that receiving back. So
granted, 3 extra yards. It's not like he did much with those catches, but he was getting more looks.
That's true, but I would be curious because I didn't watch this game in its entirety. How many of those? Like, did he just have one really bad catch, like behind the line of scrimmage, and get tackled and lose a bunch of yards?
Right.
Because that could factor in as well. Because that's I feel like that has to be a misleading stat.
It could be
4 catches for
It is possible that he got like 2 yards and he can barely get out of the backfield when they threw it to him in the flat.
Then maybe he lost a big one. I would have to look deeper into that. My gut tells me that's a little misleading, but it also could be real. So that's –
Well, the one thing I'll look at, though, is the linebackers from the Ravens are really good, right? The line's really good. Secondary is really good. The team's really good. Let's face it. the Bengals aren't as good in those areas. I mean, line's pretty good, but after that, I'm not that impressed
they're
with
not
what they have to
exactly.
offer.
I'm inclined to agree with that. They're not
So
exactly, terrifying.
I think if you're going to bet your hat on anyone in this game, I would bet it. For me personally, if you're going to think a guy who's going to rise to the occasion, when you put him on the rise list, I actually have Odell on there. I'm not an Odell fan, so me saying that's not being biased at all by any means. I actually don't like him.
No, but I do
agree.
It's got to happen eventually. He's got to break back out here. And then Baker made that whole comment and say, "Oh, we can't force Odell the ball." It's like, yeah, but you should throw it to him more often. Like, let's be real. You might not need to force it, but maybe you should manufacture a couple plays that are designed specifically for him and dial those up. Because something's got to be done here, and he's a premier talent in the NFL that I think has been ranked 67th overall for wide receiver since he got moved there. Like, that's.
And unfortunately, we can't really get too much out of, what the Bengals did on defense last week with the Chargers because they're not really a throwing team. Now, granted, Tyrod threw deeper than he usually has. But,
yes, he did.
But I don't think that we'll talk about them because I cannot stand that either. But at the end of the day, I think that this Cleveland team is going to perform pretty well in the pass game compared to what the Chargers can do right now, even though they have Keenan Allen and Hunter Henry. And Hunter Henry had a good game. But I think, Baker has talent. It just needs to come together for him.
Yeah.
I don't know if he's going to have a great game, but I do believe he will get something to Odell, and Odell's going to make a play. I'll put my reputation on that at this point. Week 2 for my pod. So from that game, if there's anyone that, in my opinion, my candidate to be the guy you must play and you put in your lineup as a riser this week, it's Odell Beckham for me.
Agreed.
Okay. Next game we got here. These are going into the Sunday 1:00 games. It's kind of in the order of the 1:00s now. We'll kind of move a little rapid pace here, just to get Mo. I don't want to keep you all night mad, of course.
Hey, no, all good.
Hey, listen, you guys are going to be here, listen to this for a while, so get used to it, assholes.
Yeah, I would say, to take it off the top right here, if you don't mind my doing so, the guys to watch in this are easily going to be Gardner Minshew, Chris Thompson, and DJ Chark. That's pretty much exactly where I'm looking. Although one of my sleepers, Dave, I reached out to you about this earlier in the year, is Colin Johnson. I picked him up in one of my dynasty leagues. I
still have no idea who he is.
Yeah, I don't think a lot of people do, but he's 6'6". Gardner Minshew's always been super efficient in the red zone. He's one of the best red zone quarterbacks. I just, called a dart throw. Just something tells me this guy's going to end up being some kind of red zone target monster eventually. I don't know if he's quite got what it takes to work up and down the field, but he could end up being a red zone favorite, which might make him fantasy relevant at some point in the future. So I drafted him in a dynasty league, stashed him, and I'm hoping, he breaks out at some point and I can promote him off the taxi squad.
I love him for a dynasty stash because this team has good receivers, but they develop them pretty well. And so we've seen guys, not the number ones on their team.
I mean, to go back, didn't Allen Robinson start here too?
Allen Robinson started here with Marquise Lee. Then they brought in D.D. Westbrook, and then Westbrook was going to be the guy. They brought in DJ Chark. He ended up being the guy. And then you know what? Hey, I actually have someone else though. I was almost there with you on that. Gardner Minshew's on my list. Look at the efficiency. 19 for 20. Yeah, he had 173 yards, but he had the 3 touchdowns, right? That number, the amount of attempts are going to go up. And he only ran the ball about 5 times for 19 yards. So I think that can go up too. Now, I had DJ Chark as my riser of the game. I think he's the guy who's going to have the 20-point game. He's going to have a big game. I really believe that. Especially Noah Dory Jackson for Tennessee. That's big for them. All right. Now, the rookie is where I respectfully disagree. You have Colin Johnson,
Chenault.
But I have Laviska Shenault as the guy that's going to become the riser. And
hold on, I'm sorry.
The potential star.
This, I think, in the short term, yes, 100% agree. Mm-hmm. I'm saying long term, I think Colin Johnson will have fantasy value. Yeah, exactly. Okay. Like we're talking possibly a year, down the line. I think we're going to see something out of him.
So he's like the coal before the pressure's inserted, right? Like he hasn't had that diamond.
Right. Just in prime position to become a diamond.
Right. Just a little more fucking pressure on it, and maybe he'll be a relevant player. And again, he's on a team that we've seen receivers literally every year do that.
Yeah.
Come in, become a factory. Even this year, You got Laviska Shenault, who already had 12 points in week 1. He was second on the team in targets. Now, obviously, for like you said, more relevant standards, I have him as my diamond. He's the guy on the team who's my riser. Yep. I think he's going to be the guy by the end of the year who could be the number 2 receiver on this team. And I love him that the fact is, out of any of the rushing attempts, they gave him 2 rushing attempts on the jet sweep. So he's actually also kind of their Deebo
That's
Samuel
pretty cool. Yeah, he's almost there. I was going to say, or even I was going to bring up Robert Woods,
yep.
who I feel like everyone just loves to forget about.
And the biggest number here, 12% owned on fantasy. And guess what? He's not going to be one of the top guys that you're going after on the free agent wire this week, or at least other people are going to be. There's going to be other guys on that roster on the agent wire. Keelan Cole might be the guy people are going to go after. And I guarantee you Keelan Cole will not do that all year. He'll have 1 or 2 games like that again, and then he'll be irrelevant again. Laviska Shenault was a relatively high draft pick, but a guy that they really liked, and I heard good things all offseason long. He's going to be a guy who's going to become a big dude on this team. He's my riser of this game. So just a cap for everyone out there. We got a deep piece of Cole unpressured diamond in Colin Johnson. We have a true diamond in the rough. Hasn't been truly discovered yet. Maybe they're
just
trying to
sitting there. Someone just mined him. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. They found it, but they can't get it out of the fucking wall yet. And maybe they're going to pop it out this week. And Laviska Shenault could be the guy to go off. But as a true riser of this game, from my end, DJ Chark. And I guess from your end too, DJ Chark, Gardner Minshew are 2 guys who I think in DFS lineups could be good. That could be a good cheap value in DFS lineups. Gardner Minshew's probably not going to be that much. He might be a little high.
Gardner Minshew is just shockingly underrated all the time. Like, this guy balls, he wins games. I think the thing that keeps him that low, though, he had 3 touchdowns on 173 yards. You know what I mean? He's good, obviously he's very good, but he's almost more, he's like the border between fantasy good and solely like in-game good. He's that guy that he's gonna give you consistent production, but he'll never be like a knock out of the park, like holy shit, he's the number 1 scorer of the week.
Essentially, he scores touchdowns, right? Like, it feels like he throws touchdowns and doesn't get the yards per se all the time.
Yeah, which I'm still trying to wrap my head around how that's possible.
I think it was game script. You know what? With Jay Gruden, you never fucking know. I mean, that's something we'll get into.
That's
Chris
true.
Thompson. I know that was your mentality about Chris Thompson. I just don't trust that right now. Will say, if James Robinson is in your fab and he's not taken by now, I'm not saying spend huge money on him. If you have $100 fab budget, maybe you go 15, even 20. If you need a running back, if you have 3, don't do that. But if you say have 2 running backs, one got hurt, you're losing some, whatever. You had Marlon Mack, you lost him, and you don't have Jonathan Taylor. James Robinson, if he's there, because I'm assuming if that certain situation happens where you have those 2, maybe people don't have it. James Robinson is going to be the guy. Now 16 for 62 is not impressive, but he did have the 1 reception for 28. That I liked. I didn't know he can catch the ball, and I have him in one of my leagues. And I saw the highlights. It wasn't like a David Montgomery looking 19 for or 16 for 62. And I know you know what I mean by that. Like, where it was just,
I know exactly what you mean. Where it's just like clunky,
right? Almost. Clunky, kind of like it was like watching a fucking tractor. As if you were trying to watch it. Like a tractor trying to be a race car kind of thing. That's how it kind of feels like to me with David Montgomery, right? And James Robinson. Well, he showed he wasn't a tractor. He's not a race car, because he runs like a 4.640, but he's a big dude. But he has that pep in his step. He has that burst. And so maybe he's a supercharged, tractor, right? One with NOS in there or something that he can spurt it at any given moment. But I think he could be someone who could be relevant. He seems like he's going to be 16 carries, and there was no other person that really got a carry, essentially. It seems like it's his job to lose right now. He just needs to get in the end zone, and then hopefully he has like an explosive play here or there. I don't know if it's going to happen this week, because if we're talking about the Tennessee strengths, the running backs, in my opinion, aren't going to be where you're going to get your strengths. The receiving game without Adoree Jackson, even though you have Kevin Byard back there, I think that's where you can get your value. And that's why also with Adoree Jackson out, they're going to have to put that number 2 on DJ Chark. That's why I really do believe Laviska Shenault could be a sneaky fucking play this week. I don't think you could, but maybe DFS lineup, you need that low budget. He's a good option you can throw in there. Keelan Cole, in my opinion, is a smokescreen. I could be totally wrong, but I'm going to go with my gut here and say Keelan Cole is going to shit the fucking bed. So, Going down to the other team, Tennessee Titans. Looked okay last night. I didn't think anything special.
Yeah, Derrick Henry is phenomenal. Like, I mean, the guy's a beast. The only thing that's always scared me about him is I tend to prefer receiving backs. You know, I obviously default to them because I think, you know, that way they're not going to get scripted out of the game. Not that you really can script Henry out. I think he's one of the last true, like, pure bull runners, you know, if that makes sense. And 31 for 116, like he's going to put up games like this all season. Like, you know, once I'll never forget what it was like 2 years ago, he had his real breakout.
Right.
And he's been on fire since. So he's always going to be someone to target.
The biggest number, 31 attempts. Like you said, he's not going to get that every week. They have to be ahead to be doing that all the time. If they start to get down at any point, and maybe this Jaguars team to score early and surprise them and do that this week, I think they can have a shot here. That's why I really do like Minshew and Chark, because I do believe that Jacksonville defense and the offensive line is not bad. Everyone was talking like number 1 overall pick. They're taking for Trevor. I literally, Matt, okay, I had to talk to you about this. I actually meant to say this. I recorded a segment that I didn't post. It was literally about the 53-man roster of the Jaguars the day the 53-man roster came out, and that was around the same time Ronnie Harrison got traded and Yannick Ngakoue the week before. So there was a bunch of people moving, and everyone started saying that shit. Tank for Trevor, right? Dude, I straight up in that whole segment talked about how the Jaguars are not as bad as you guys think they are. The line is solid all around. The defense is still good even after losing those guys. They did get C.J. Henderson, who played fantastic in week 1. They have a good pass rush. They still have good weapons there, even without Yannick. I actually really like this team. I think Jaguars pulled the upset against the Titans this week in Tennessee. And I think my big riser is actually not going to be from the Jaguars, even though I do want to throw DJ Chark into that hat. But my big riser from this game, a guy who I think you should plug in if you have him, and if you don't have one of the top guys, Jonnu Smith, the tight end. I actually do. I know it's not sexy, 744 for 36 and a touchdown, but I know.
The tight end position's so rare. It's the toughest one to fill. Like, you know, there's such a drop off after the top guys.
It is. But I'm too afraid to go with A.J. Brown. A lot of things I did not see that listen, Washington, Tennessee fans know this whole little thing between A.J. Brown and Terry McLaurin, who's better, blah, blah, blah. A.J. Brown didn't help his fucking case last night. I will tell you that right now, and I'm not saying that just as a Washington fan. He literally was awful. The play at the end that literally would have won them the game when they didn't have to rely on a Gostkowski's field goal, who already missed 3 earlier in the game.
What happened there?
I mean, he got in his head by the 3rd field goal. There's no doubt in my mind. So it is what it is.
But
you know, I'm surprised that they didn't release him already, to be honest with you. I don't know if they did. But in terms of this game, against the Jaguars defense, I think Henry has a good game. I don't think he's going to have 31 carries, but I do think he'll have over 100 yards. I want to challenge AJ. I think Corey Davis, the 13-6, there's 8 targets and 101 yards, that's great and everything, but we know what Corey Davis is. Don't be fooled. Corey Davis is owned by 5%, so if you want to go out and buy him, go for it. But do not spend like $40 or half your budget on Corey Davis. No reason for it. You could probably get him for maybe a quarter of your budget. If you have $100, maybe max 20. And that's if you're desperate for receiver help. Not if you just want to put him on your bench. Because I can guarantee you this guy's going to be on your bench quite a bit when he fucks up every game.
Corey Davis has been – I mean, that's the name of his game. He's inconsistent. He always has been.
Yep. Now, A.J. Brown, I'm going to give the benefit of the doubt. There was a really bad miss. He did have 7 targets. He only had 1 less reception, but 60 less yards, right?
I thought you said really bad miss. So I was like, what, so he couldn't see? Like, what do you mean? It was foggy? Like,
well, I mean, you know what? It wouldn't surprise me with the way that he just completely put his hands up and the ball just to the right. It's like you're watching a fucking cartoon. So I have A.J. Brown as the guy who, you know, you could put him in if he's a flex, if you don't have someone who's more consistent number 1. But I wouldn't rely on him this week. I would have really sit him because there's a very good chance if the Jaguars are smart, they're going to put C.J. Henderson on him, and that could be some issues. I don't know how that's going to go. We haven't seen that matchup yet. So I like them. Is there anyone that you like in this game that you think is a must start if you have him on the fantasy team? For me,
I don't know about him.
My only one.
I don't know about a must start. I actually do put Ryan Tannehill and Gardner Minshew in kind of the same position, though. Like, I think they're both guys that'll they'll give you solid weeks. If you need a fill-in, I don't know why you need a fill-in for week 2 at quarterback, but, or if you just want an efficient DFS play, you want to save budget to spend elsewhere, those are 2 guys I think can both kind of be safely plugged in at this point.
Also, just for a little note here, 10.56 projected by Yahoo for Tennessee's defense. Last week against who would they play? Denver Broncos, right? They let up 14 points, sure, 1 fumble recovery, and that was it. They had 5 points, and that was against a team with a quarterback who's still not really that proven, didn't really tote the rock, and we're missing their number 1 receiver. If you think they're going to put 10 points against a Gardner Minshew that has good receivers, that has some pieces, and it's a deceivingly not bad team, I don't think that's going to be the case. I have them in my main league. I'm going to drop them and try to get someone else tonight. Give you one guess potentially on who it might be and all. But that being said, we're going to move into the next game. The team that Ron Rivera left and used to coach, the Carolina Panthers, go up against the Las Vegas Raiders. That's still going to be a little hard to remember.
Yeah, that's a tough one. There's so many teams doing this now.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy. But Panthers, Teddy Bridgewater, 19 fantasy points. Actually, much better than I thought he was going to do this week, to be honest with you. But 270 and a touchdown. I'm not surprised by the volume of touchdowns or lack thereof. McCaffrey put up 26 points. We're not even going to talk about McCaffrey. You start him, you put him in, you don't touch him, you don't trade him, and then that's it. Robbie Anderson is what I want to talk about, because Robbie Anderson came in with 22 fantasy points this week.
Do you trust it?
I do. And here's why.
Because he's not on the Jets?
Because he's not on the Jets, but also I look at Teddy Bridgewater in the past, and he's actually done pretty well with bigger receivers. When he had Michael Thomas last year, he was much better in New Orleans than I saw him in Minnesota, and they didn't have the biggest receivers at the time in Minnesota, if I remember correctly. No,
that's true. How tall is Adam Thielen? Like 6?
He's like 6'1", maybe. 6'2".
Yeah, he's big, but he's not huge.
Right. Robbie Anderson is much bigger than that. He's a tall, lanky, really true stride kind of guy that can get down the field. And the reason why I like him is because A, he had 115 yards and a touchdown, but B, he had 8 targets and 6 receptions. So he only missed 2 of those targets, and he only had 1 less target than DJ Moore and Curtis Samuel, and he put up double the production. So almost triple it, Yeah. So I think, it's a new team. We can't sit here and say, well, DJ Moore is going to be the guy, and he'll step back up because he's the number 1. Yeah, he was the number 1 with Cam Newton.
I think we're going to see this. Yeah. I think we're going to see the ball spread around a lot. Like, there's a very, very even target spread. Wow. We're going to use words correctly. There's a very even target spread, and I think that's going to benefit Anderson a few times. I think Moore might be the better route runner. I'd have to double-check that. But, I mean, even Samuel's very underrated at route running, but Robbie Anderson has that breakaway speed. You know what I mean? That's always been his thing. So it's like when he does get the ball, odds are he's going to do something with it that far. I am still a little bit apprehensive about him, but the targets are telling the true story here.
Now, you could be right, and it could have been a very big possibility that in this new scheme, new coaches, new quarterback, that they expected Teddy Bridgewater to do what I would have expected him to do, and that's throw the ball super short, dink and dunk, whatever. Maybe they use that to their advantage week 1 and said, hey, listen, we're going to fucking come out and throw the ball. And that's why Robbie Anderson, because there were some deeper passes that he threw, and I was surprised. Same thing with Tyrod Taylor. He not all the time with Teddy. He's controlled more. We see one touchdown, 0 interceptions, 0 turnovers. That's what he does, right? But I think this week will be a big test going up against the Buccaneers in what could be a high-scoring game. I do think I really want to see. And let's not get it straight. 34-30 is a high-scoring game last week too. But I just think getting to see it again, if he does it again, yes, Robbie Anderson may end up being the number 1 on this team. And people forget he's talented enough to be a number 1, but he, like you said, was on the fucking Jets. Yeah. So, I mean, DJ Moore, he's a speedy guy, he can get open in the field. And he can beat you deep. He's fast, obviously. And he has that ability. But in terms of size, I think Teddy's going to end up trusting a bigger guy that can do that speed down the field like Robbie can. And I think it's a great value for them for the pickup. I mean, obviously, very good return so far. And like we said, on the fab list, I'm going to put him there. because 31% is not that high, in my opinion, and that's available in a lot of leagues. 31% is on the tier. I think we should cut off at like maybe 35%, 40% maybe. 40% is pushing it, depending on who it is, right? 30%, Robbie Anderson, we're going to add him to the fab list because, in my opinion, this could be a guy who, even if he's not the number one, will end up being the number two all year. And I don't see Curtis Samuel got negative reviews all throughout camp. He didn't end the season well. He's underwhelmed overall.
And Curtis Samuel is one of those guys that, I feel like people have just been waiting, like thinking like, okay, he's going to do something. This is it. Curtis Sam is going to step up. Hasn't happened. And now on the same side of that, they have no tight ends. I mean, I literally just scanned right over them. Ian Thomas. I'm not even going to go into that. Whether they have something 1 week or whatever, it's good for them. Defense doesn't look the same without Luke Kuechly and all of them, obviously. 34 points to let up, not one sack, not one pick, not touching anything there. I really only feel comfortable starting right now on that team, Christian McCaffrey. I would say I would pick up Robbie Anderson, but I'm not going to start him this week necessarily. Not against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers and Tom Brady, which is their opponent this week. They lost their first game. Is it Tom Brady? Is it Bill Belichick? Who fucking knows? But I can tell you right now, it's probably not either or, I'm sure. I mean, it is what it is. Belichick and them, the Patriots, they played the Dolphins and they won it. They won in a Patriots way, but it's not going to work every week. Yeah. That being said, going back to Tom Brady, 20 fantasy points in week 1 for this particular league. Obviously, 4-point touchdown league in my end, 25 points per 1 point per 25 yards. 231, 2 touchdowns and 2 picks were bad. He did have the 1 rushing touchdown that saved that week. I don't think it's going to happen every week. I agree. Do we feel good starting Mike Evans this week? Obviously, you're going to put him in, and I hate these kind of weeks. That's why I hate Mike Evans, by the way, because it's like you have to put him in, but are you comfortable really putting him in? Because he always hurt. Yeah, there's always something with him. There's always something with Mike Evans. I have actually learned my lesson after being twice burned by him. I tend to stay away from him. If you have him, you have to start him, though. It's honestly not really an option. If you have the option to not pick him up, if you're looking at daily, just avoid him. Yep. Honestly, because you're not going to get the kind of consistent production. You don't know how things are going to go. We still need to see really how this offense shakes out because this was I think it's safe to say pretty underwhelming, which is shocking considering it moved from Jameis Winston to Tom Brady. But I think the thing a lot of people forget is the opportunities afforded to both Godwin and Evans by Jameis's propensity to throw it to the other team. Right. They were down late in games. They had to throw more. In close games, I don't know if you can really justify some of these receivers. So I agree. One of the sleepers I had marked down on my end, maybe for a fab list, deep flyer, and probably won't be that expensive, Scotty Miller. Quietly had 10 fantasy points. Could be the Wes Welker of this team. Who knows? Yeah. I did notice, though, if you actually do look at the target share, this is where I had a problem with the offense, the way Tom ran it. He's so used to not having these outside receivers, and I think that really hurt him in week 1. That he has to get used to this because you look at the targets, 7 targets for Chris Godwin, 6 for Scotty Miller, the slot guy, 4 for Mike Evans. Now, granted, he was hurt. But you're talking about 1 less reception for your slot guy who's never seen the field, essentially, compared to your all-pro 2 receivers. That was concerning to me. I noticed that he really was utilizing the slot more than the outside. I think that will continue to get better. I hope so for Chris Godwin's sake. I have him. But this week, I really want to talk mainly O.J. Howard, Rob Gronkowski, man. I mean, is Rob the odd man out here? No, Rob, you can't call him the odd man out. But I mean, from a few pundits I was listening to, you can kind of see this coming simply for the fact that O.J. Howard kind of has the established role in the offense. Gronk obviously has a deep connection with Tom Brady, but I think the big thing with him was always going to be he's going to be a monster red zone threat for them when the situation arises. But I don't see him playing the full scheme of snaps. He was kind of a bonus. Like, you don't say no to Rob Gronkowski coming back, but I don't think the team actively sought him out. I think Tom Brady was just like, it'd be cool to play with Rob Gronk again. And then the team was like, okay. But, like, he wasn't necessarily slotted for it. And I agree. I mean, I think he'll do some things, but he might be like more of the Aaron Hernandez, and not by anything from what he did off the field. I'm talking about when they had 2 tight end offense there in New England. You had Gronk as the main guy, and Hernandez was kind of like, tight end 1A, right? Or 1B, right?
I think that's kind of what you might see here. OJ might become tight end 1A because of his youth and athleticism, his ability, and Gronk because of familiarity and all that good stuff might be kind of more that second tight end down the road. I don't really know. I definitely think 17% owned in Yahoo standards, OJ Howard should be owned. I'm comfortable enough from what I saw, the 6 targets compared to the 3 with Gronk, and that could change from week to week eventually. But I do believe that he's going to at least get like 5 targets a week, and if he could do something with that, it's worth a stash potentially if you need him. If you're struggling at tight end, if your guy didn't do too well, if Kittle got hurt and you need someone, and that's and there's a couple players, I would have like Janu Smith and OJ Howard on that list.
Yep.
But there is one guy who I'm going to go back to because I didn't mention him, and we did go over the team that should be on top of that list. Well, not on top of that, but you could put him in the mix there with tight ends, and that would be Logan Thomas for the Washington football team. I didn't talk about him before, but he got the touchdown with Dwayne Haskins, looked comfortable, extended a play for a first down, had some really explosive plays, and he seems like he's the tight end there. For a young quarterback with not as many receiving options per se, he might be an interesting guy who could throw in, and he is the guy there in Washington as tight end. So I think that could be something. Don't be surprised if he's on the waiver wire, then he does it again, and all of a sudden he's gone. So if you guys need one, those are 3 guys that I would throw out there that maybe you take and replace for like a George Kittle, or you bring someone in case he's out for multiple weeks or whatever it may be, or he gets hurt again in the game, which is always a fear for me to have a backup in case whatever. Awesome. So Buccaneers defense, they are going up against that Panthers team. I don't think they're going to put up 11 points. We'll see. I don't think they're as good as they think they are. I think the Saints weren't as great as we all thought they might be. I think I kind of expected them to kind of have a little down game. Michael Thomas getting hurt sucks. No doubt about it.
Dude, like that – it's mind-blowing.
It's mind-blowing. It's mind-blowing. It is.
Like, I'm sitting there, I was like, how is this happening?
You know why? It's because the year I got rid of him as a keeper.
It's because the year I got him for the first time. Like, and in the first round too, I never go receiver first round. I was like, you know what? It's Michael Thomas. This is a safe bet.
And I took later Devontae Adams and Tyreek Hill. Just want to let everyone know that's how the draft went there. So I feel pretty good about that pick so far right now. All right, so we're going to speed through the next couple of games here because Steelers I kind of want your input on just because you guys played them yesterday. But Broncos, I'm going to spend a little time on this because I'm going to name a couple people right now. Melvin Gordon, especially if Philip Lindsay can't play, he's questionable. He should be in your lineup. 15 for 78 and a touchdown, the 3 receptions, that should increase against the Steelers team who is going to most likely score if they can with those wide receivers if they played the way they played against you guys. The defense is tough, and so I do expect them to have to dump the ball off a little bit more. Gordon should get catches if Philip Lindsay can't go. I love him this week if that's the case. Sutton, we don't know what's going to go on with him yet. Judy, I'm just going to touch on this. The drops, I get it. It's week 1.
Week 1. I mean, that's –
But I was a little surprised to see that happen to him out of all of them. I thought he would be the surefire not to do shit like that. But week 1, the nerves, he had the Monday night late game. And, let's let him get used to Denver first and all that good shit. I'm not going to touch on that. Noah Fant, by the way, Noah Fant is a bona fide TE1 officially now, my opinion, personally. 16 points.
I think he 100% lived up to the hype. Yeah. Shout to his hot girlfriend, too. My God. I don't know if you follow her on Instagram.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I think 8.48 is way low for him. I think DFS lineups, you throw Noah Fant in there.
We've got a new contender for, especially with Kittle being out, to really make his way into that top tier of tight ends, and this could be it for him.
Now, some people might be scared away because they are playing the Pittsburgh Steelers, who did sort of shut down Evan Ingram, essentially, right? 1.2 points.
Yeah, but there's a big difference between Evan Ingram, who's more of a I'm going to run past you, and Noah Fant, who I feel like can pretty much body people. I think there's a difference in build that factors in pretty well there. I mean, Ingram, from a Giants fan, is pretty much a glorified receiver, whereas I look at Fant and I think, that's a tight end. That's a real deal right there. Also, shout to Jake Butt for actually playing. As a Michigan fan, I'm happy to see Booty Time back out there. Even if it's in a less substantial role, I'm just happy that he's still able to get on the field.
I really wanted us to trade a 7th round pick or 6th round pick for Butt and bring him to Washington because I just wanted to be able to root for Booty. But Noah Fant, I'll tell you what, I want the Fanta this week. You throw him in your lineup, he's TE1.
Oh my God, that's such an obvious fantasy team name that I didn't even get.
If I had him, right?
Fanta?
Yo, if anyone wins with that team, you're gonna give me a percentage of your earnings. Okay, I'm just throwing it out there right now.
Or at least a permanent shout out on your team. You know, for having has his name etched on the trophy there.
Exactly. I want it to be Rise and Fall Pod. Okay. Steelers now the opposite side. Ben's back, like you said. We can finally talk about this. The injury last year.
I don't think Ben stays back. I don't think Ben stays back by any means. You can kind of tell when he was limping off there a couple of plays. I just don't buy into it. I think he had a good game this time once he shook the jitters, but I think I don't know. I just don't see it being a permanent thing for him. I think he ends up hanging it up after this year.
I mean, it always seems that way, right? Like he'll get going and then he gets hurt. I'm kind of just waiting for it at this point. But with that all being said, you ride the receivers while you can. It's the same thing if you have like Jordan Reed healthy at the beginning of the season. Like you ride him until he's hurt. Chris Thompson, you ride him until he's hurt. You know, these are the kind of guys. Ben right now, you ride him until he gets hurt. We'll go into the running back, but I want to go to his receivers in particular, because I have a guy who is kind of the question mark, and people are kind of not freaking out, but they're like, what the fuck's going on here? Deontay Johnson this week had the rough week, it seemed like. Even the commentators were like, oh, he has to get his shit together, essentially, you know? And I thought it was funny because when I looked at the stats afterwards, I was like, well, he didn't actually have a bad game. And then I saw a tweet earlier, which reflected what I noticed here, is that, yeah, sure, he didn't have the best game in the world, but the other guys scored touchdowns, okay? So if he had a touchdown, all of a sudden you're talking about a 12-point game, and it's a good game, right? He had 10 targets. He led the team in targets.
I didn't realize he had that many targets.
By 4. He had 32% of the targets this week. Clearly, Ben likes him. So even though he had the fumble loss, which obviously brought down, he would have had 8 points. It wouldn't have been terrible if he didn't have the fumble. So, again, he had a rough week. That all being said, 6 for 69 for Juju. He had the 2 touchdowns. Made it a great week. Well, 6 for 57 for Deontay. It wasn't that much of a difference. And then James Washington, who had 10, had 2 for 34. All right. And that was on 3 targets. So people are like, well, James Washington's going to come up now. No. Guys, Deontay Johnson, don't fucking drop him. He's one of those guys who I'm going to get fucking mad if you drop him. All right.
You don't want him mad at you.
Yeah.
Just keep him. It's like, guys, let's temper expectations too here. It's week 1. It is week 1.
Yep.
You know, we're coming into the second week. We can't even call anything consistency, in my opinion, until week 5.
Agreed.
We're not going to know what we really got with anyone until week 5. However, there's still some guys that you can absolutely get rid of, but suffice it to say, Deontay Washington is not one of them.
Right. There's trends that you can just kind of identify, and our goal here is to help you do that. You know, for example, James Washington might be sought after, 13% owned. He scored the second touchdown. Could not be
off three targets. Don't 3 targets is the big thing you need to look at there. No matter how spectacular those 3 targets might have been, he only got looked at 3 times. There's a reason for that.
Yep. Now, if there's a guy I do want to touch in many, many ways, and yeah, I know how I said that, Benny Snell would be on top of my list.
Yep.
He is the big name who I know everyone knows, so it's not like it's any secret us talking about him. But this is where our analysis is, and I know we're on the same page here. I don't even have to ask you. I know.
No, you know.
It's not just a this week pick. You might get him. James Conner might be out. We don't know what the fuck timely manner means. Thanks, Adam Schefter, for that stupid fucking report. But outside of that, we don't know what that means. What that tells me, though, it's a lingering type of issue that could be a fucking problem.
And that seems to be yeah, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I said to myself last night when I saw it and I saw the timely manner, I screamed this out loud, and I think my door was open so people heard downstairs. I'd rather he had broke his fucking leg and ended on IR, because you want to know why? Not any harm against James Conner. I'm not wishing that on him. What I mean by that is he's the kind of guy who has the lingering thing here. And it's
but
the game's going to play.
Season.
And he's going to – but he's healthy enough to play when the time comes, and then 3 plays in, he's out again. That I call – and it's not, he hasn't done as much lately. I call that the Dalvin Cook effect. I took him 2 years ago, Dalvin Cook, for $54. I remember it. It was a very high draft pick. This was the year before he went off, not last year. And he got hurt like every other game. And he would be healthy and active, So I would still start him, but then he would get hurt, and I have like 0.3 fantasy points. That's James Conner. The guy who had James Conner in my fantasy league this year, I asked him, I'm like, who are you keeping, man? Who are you keeping this year? I thought he was going to keep Kyler Murray. He keeps James Conner. He told me that. All I thought to myself, I wanted to say something. I was like, I was that concerned. You can't, right? They're like, no. And you know what? I didn't do it. I ended up getting Russell Wilson, so I'm happy still. But, James Conner is never going to stay on the field. And it's funny because I see people on NFL Network, well, James Conner might, he might be he might be an injury-prone person. No, not might. He's fucking injury-prone. The motherfucker can literally not stay on the field at all. Done. I don't say drop him, but don't even rely.
Trade him if you can. If you can trade him, trade him. If you can put together a package. Yeah, like honestly, if you can put together a package and he's like the bonus item, because I don't think anybody's going out of their way looking for him. Nope. They might try and chase points from a couple years ago, but if you can put together something and then you're like, oh, I'll tell you what, and I'll throw in James Conner, do it.
And that's it. Because if you could get rid of him and you have two guys that you can spare, and then Benny Snell, I guarantee you within 2 weeks he's going to be your guy.
Yep.
All right. I'm sure he's going to start this week. He'll probably take the role if he does what he did again, and he could against this Denver defense without Von Miller. So
of $100 fob, how much would you put on Benny Snell right now?
So this would be my highest value option this week, and for many reasons that we just talked about, I literally would be comfortable spending. Well, I wouldn't say half my budget because we did in our league this year. We have 200 in my main league, so we added an extra 100. So I wouldn't say I would spend $100 on him in the fab budget, but I would spend. If I had the 200, I would easily spend like $60 on him there. If I was in a normal league with a $100 budget, I would be comfortable. If you need a running back, or honestly, even if you don't, unless you have like Zeke and like Aaron Jones, I would say maybe it's a little rich for you, unless you're great at every other position. But maybe $45 to $50 I'd be willing to spend. So maybe half my budget I would be willing to spend.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. That's very much in line. Which this again is going live. Are we on Twitch right now? Is anyone following us on Twitch?
No. We're through the Zoom. So this is getting recorded, but we're not live. Yeah. No one's
all right. So I'm willing to say right now, my running backs in my league, I'm going to go full reveal on this, are Saquon Barkley, because duh, and Christian McCaffrey, which I'm amazed I was able to pull off. It was an auction draft league. And then I was just super cautious with my budget, went for values after that, one of which was Kyler Murray. So I'm very happy with my team right now. But I need a little bit of help at the flex position because I don't like to rely on a receiver for that. So prior to this, I had $46 on picking up Snell and dropping Kerryon Johnson. And I think I'm going to stick with that. And I've also got I'm going to throw this out there too. I'm also trying to pick up Dallas Goedert for $22.
Well, I love that. I mean, if that I'll roll backtrack because I wanted to talk about that too. But Dallas Goedert, he's your number one value at tight end. Hands down, in the end, he's your guy.
Do you think 22 is enough for him out of a $100 budget?
Shit, I would go for 30. I would, if you're comfortable with it, I'd do that. I think 20-25 is a comfortable range for him. I mean, like I said, I'm spending like 30 on Logan Thomas this week just because he's the top guy and I have $200 of budget. So it's like, for me, it's like $10, $11, $12.
Yeah.
And then, we'll go to the lines here. I actually scrolled down by accident here. So all that being said, Steelers defense, I would start him. Even if
start the Steelers defense all year.
Turnovers.
Yeah, start that defense all year. Just look at what they did. Now, the Giants didn't even play the first half of the game, didn't even play that poorly.
Yeah.
But the fact that you're looking at Saquon Barkley, who, in my very biased opinion, is the best running back in the league from a pure talent perspective, and the fact that this guy couldn't get to the line of scrimmage should tell you everything you need to know about this defense. If you have them, start them, don't look back.
100%. On the other end of this, Eric Ebron, put on your bench. Don't start him. You can drop him if you want. I don't give a shit. I don't trust him right now. I don't give a fuck. Eric Ebron, you can keep him if you want. I just don't think he's going to be. Ben's never really uses tight ends that way since like Heath Miller. He might have some good weeks, and listen, he's going to do something that's going to make me like look dumb because he'll have like a touchdown this week or whatever. But it's not going to be. It's going to be so inconsistent. I do like these three receivers.
Has and been Chase kind Claypool, of the hallmark of.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say it's been the hallmark of Eric Ebron's career, even when he was essentially the number 2 receiver with Andrew Luck and T.Y. Hilton in Indy. He wasn't doing all that much. Like every once in a while he'd break out and then he'd kind of disappear again. So it's
exactly.
Not really,
And Chase Claypool made an amazing catch. I mean, that catch was amazing. I think
Chase Claypool
What's up? Yeah,
Yeah, no, I think he's a riser here. Yeah.
Yeah, he's definitely a riser. And in terms of targets, in terms of guy that Ben's going to like, so it looks like he already does. I think he's going to take Ebron snaps a little bit, maybe even James Washington. But I love Chase Claypool. That catch he made, it was like a 13% chance that someone could catch that.
Wow,
I think that's pretty incredible. I mean, that was a next-gen stat that I saw today that I was impressed with, 100%. Next game is going to be a fun one to talk about. The Rams at Philadelphia. Oh, God, I'm so happy we beat them. I kind of hate that they had all the injuries, to be honest with you, because at the end of the day, I would have loved to beat them in their prime. But you know what? We beat them. We whooped the shit out of them. We hurt even more of those players. You're welcome, Los Angeles, at this point. Is there any way that the Eagles win this game?
No, not with the injuries that they're currently going through. He got sacked. Wentz got sacked, what, 7 times? 8 times?
Wentz got sacked 8 times.
Yeah.
8 times by 7 different players.
That's week 1. He literally – it's like that meme of that one porn star surrounded by all the dudes on the couch. That's what happened to Carson Wentz. Without being too graphic here, and I don't see Aaron Donald being nearly as forgiving. So I think they're going to have a tough time. You know, the Eagles line is all kinds of banged up, which honestly, for as much as I dislike the team, I actually do really like Carson Wentz. So I feel a little bad for him here.
I mean, that was
even
actually
last year, he had no receivers.
And that was the sentiment I heard from actually the Eagles fans. Like I even thought, I'm like, I just kind of feel bad for Carson Wentz.
Yeah, he's just like, stop hurting me.
Can someone just like end this game, please, so I don't see him die? Like, I just don't want to see it happen. Now, granted, I rolled with Wentz last year. He helped me win a championship in my auction league.
Yeah.
And they didn't have the receivers all year. The tight ends were all they had. I'm going to say this. Dallas Goedert is a must start. There's some weird shit going on with Zach Ertz right now, and I think he might end up getting traded. I do. I actually think that. If not, he's going to be
whatever happened back there, something is up. Because normally in situations like this, you see Ertz absorb a lot of the targets. Because what was his target share here?
He saw a lot.
He saw a lot.
He saw 7 targets, but he only had 3 catches for 18 yards.
Yeah,
that's something. And I can tell you right now, I watched every play of this game, so I know this one more than most, other games that we talk about. There were drops. There were a lot of them that were wide open.
He's clearly distracted.
With the last one, went right through his fucking hands. It would have got the game going, could have saved the game, made it a ball game, and it was 4th down, and then we won the game because of that. So it's. I don't know, man. I'm just I got some phlegm in my throat, excuse me. But I look at this team, and I think there's going to be a changing of the guard here at tight end. 20 points is not out of the norm of what we've seen him do before. I think at a minimum, you're talking about the floor with these tight ends. Last year, Zach Ertz had the floor. It was kind of felt like no matter what he did, he was going to have 7 fantasy points, 8 fantasy points. Decent day, and his floor was going to be high, but his ceiling's not as high, right? Dallas Goedert seemed to be the opposite. I think you're going to see that change, but I think Goddard's going to have the high floor and ceiling. So he's a must start for me this week against this Chargers team. I'm sorry, the Rams team. I'm getting those confused all the time. Even though, they have a good pass rush, I do think, like you said, it's going to be rough. Wentz has to get quick outs, and that's why he's going to really target tight ends. While I do think they will cover that, and I think maybe one of these receivers breaks out for something interesting, I think that he's the guy if I felt comfortable about anyone, he'd be the guy I'm starting. And in Miles Sanders, I'd be afraid if he's playing.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I trust him to start, honestly. Like, I would start. Can we actually talk about this? What happened to Boston Scott? Because he left and came back, but there was no actual report.
He got hurt. He got banged up.
But did he come back there in the game?
He didn't. I don't know if he came fully back at the end of the game, but he left. And it was Corey Clement. They couldn't do shit, but he wasn't really doing shit either. So, I would love to see Jalen Reagor get more than 1 catch for 55 yards. I mean, he had the least amount of targets on the team outside of John Hightower, but he had the most yards. So
also,
I think if they can get that going. But
I would say, speaking of Jalen Reagor, if you have Jalen Reagor on your team, because what's his roster percentage right now? 38%. If you have him on your team and it's not Reagor Targaryen, what are you doing? This is the most obvious fantasy team name set up ever.
True.
Just be Rhaegar Targaryen.
True. I mean, you have to be. You have to be Rhaegar Targaryen or you're a failure at life,
Yeah, this is like the same as a few years ago when you could be Daenerys Targaryen. Come on.
Like if you don't change your name ASAP, you're probably never going to get, any.
You're not going to win.
Again.
You're not going to win.
You're never going to get laid again.
Ever.
Or God, doesn't matter.
Ever. Yeah.
Going to the other team here, the Rams, and I'm going to try. I don't want to keep you so long, but I do want to kind of get through these because I think it's good analysis here. The Rams looked kind of shitty on offense from a passing perspective, but the run game might have got solved. I don't know. Is Malcolm Brown free agent wire pickup this week?
Very possibly. I mean, Malcolm Brown has always kind of been that guy. I mean, even last year, he was the guy. Yep. People just didn't want to talk about him. He's not a sexy pick, for lack of a better word. The only thing that scares me here a little bit is that is Cam Akers going to take this job sooner or later? Because last year we thought it was going to be Darrell Henderson, who just kind of proved he didn't have what it takes to succeed at the pro level. Yep. I was big in on Henderson. I thought based on his college shape, he was going to be a stud. Not the case. I actually have a dynasty team where I have both Brown and Henderson rostered. I've got to probably just take the cap hit and lose Henderson. But Akers, I think – wait, what?
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Akers, I think, showed a little bit more. It took him a little bit to get going there. It wasn't super efficient. But I don't know if Brown's job is 100% safe. He's been good considering what's been given to him, but I don't know if I would necessarily say he's got the job 100% locked down forever, and Akers is permanently in that supporting role. But I think he is good. He's effective.
So if you had a $100 budget, would you be willing to spend $30 on Malcolm Brown?
30 was the exact number I had in my head. Yeah. 30
that would be around the area because I do agree you might very well get a stud and you might get him I have a feeling he's going to go higher in a lot of these things, so you might not end up getting him. But the way I always do it is I have like a tier of like a bunch of guys, and that first guy I realistically kind of know I'm not going to get, so maybe that second guy I'll get, and I do really personally like Malcolm Brown. I do think he might keep the role. I do see where you're coming from with Cam. I think he did show some things, but if the trend for receptions, for receiving, is Malcolm Brown's job with this offense and that defense, I think he might be more involved if it's passing down. They do a lot of passing downs. There are a lot of passing downs. So I think if that's the case, and I think that's why you saw the targets and just looks his way was much more. But like you said, they've been talking about him, and it's like we know not to believe it because it never really materialized in the past. But this year, I don't know, man. I like me some Malcolm Brown. I'd be willing to spend even $35, maybe if you need a running back, $40. I might even look for him in one of my leagues. Who knows? So, but if I had to pick someone to go off this week, and I'm hoping, this is not me saying it, but I'm hoping because of things going on
Please
there.
Please say who I think you're saying.
Tyler fucking Higbee. All right.
Not what you were going to say.
Okay, I know. I had a feeling you thought maybe I was going to say Van Jefferson or Cooper Kupp, right?
But I'm hoping my boy, the eternal sleeper, Robert Woods.
Okay.
That's another story.
But Tyler Higbee, sure, didn't look great, amazing. But he was a top guy for only 4 targets, so it was more of a game script. I saw how it was. You look at Goff's numbers, 20 for 31, only 10 fantasy points for a reason, right? And he really looked his receivers way. But he was 3rd on the team in targets. He is the TE1. And guess who got hurt during the game this week? Gerald Everett. And when Gerald Everett gets hurt, Tyler Higbee has like 8 receptions, 9 receptions a game. Yeah. So he was not my number 1 tight end, but I kind of listened to Roto World and I want to say Josh Norris. I think it's Josh Norris. And those guys at Roto World kind of want to give him a shout out since we communicated on Twitter once in a while. If he doesn't work out, I'm blaming you guys. I've said this in the review I left, and I will say it on here. But I'm going to give him the benefit this week. I think I want to see him if Gerald Everett doesn't go. Even if he does, I want to see what he can do. I do think he's going to get more than the 7.83, and I think he's going to reward fantasy owners who did rely on him. And that is maybe a little wishful thinking, but I have a strong feeling he's going to get some things done this week. Now, I say that, want to know why? Because who did the Eagles struggle with on that team outside of Terry if they threw it his way? Logan Thomas. Logan Thomas got yards. He was getting production. He was doing all the things he wanted from Washington's end for Philly.
Yeah.
And they had Derek Barnett go down. They had Javon Hargrave. They had a lot of guys down who I don't know if they're going to be back this way. I think they even lost a linebacker or something too. If that's the case and those guys are out, I think Tyler Higbee has a really big game and could be my riser of the week for this team, rather. Riser for the Rams.
Gotcha, riser for this matchup, yeah.
Now, going into the Eagles side, we already talked about that. I don't want to talk too much time. I think Wentz is going to struggle. I think he'll have like a 16-point game, maybe, what they're projecting here, 270, maybe touchdown and a pick or something like that.
And we even said this in the offseason. Wentz can do a lot of things, but without an offensive line, he's not going to have enough time. He's honestly, he's almost borderline at risk of getting hurt himself with the amount of hits that he took week one alone. Granted, that was against a now vaunted and rightfully so Washington pass rush.
Yep.
But it's not like things are getting easier for him up against the Rams right here.
Exactly. And their secondary is much better than ours to a degree.
Yeah, and there's just no weapons. Like he's got Goddard at this point, and maybe Rager wakes up. For whatever reason, they're not using one of my least favorite players in the league over here. I'm still mad at Deshaun Jackson. I actually used his name for the first time probably 6 years right there.
I'm going to name him as rat shit, piece of shit, fuckface, because you know what? I mean, listen, at the end of the day.
It's a rat fuck piece of shit.
Yeah, at the end of the day, I was a fan. And then the comments, we're not going to talk about politics here. I'm Jewish, so it didn't rub me the right way. And it is what it is. But I also, he's back with the Eagles. He talks shit on the Washington team, so I hate him even more. And I tweeted this out, and I'll say it again. I love seeing that sour fucking puss on his face when they realized they weren't going to win this game. And it made me feel so good because of how he talks shit on us and so forth. And it just shows that it's not Jay Gruden's team anymore. But going back to the game now, I want to talk about a team. And I'm going to spend like 2 minutes on this, okay? Because let's be real. We know what this game's going to be. Niners-Jets. Let's just be simple here.
Don't play any of the Jets.
The only Jet you can play is Jamison Crowder, right?
And even then, do you really want to do that to yourself?
Listen,
do you really want your entire position, whatever, if you're going to fill him in the flex or wide receiver spot, do you want to rely on Jamison Crowder for that?
That he might be in that, play until he gets hurt kind of guys, because Crowder he had 13 targets. Clearly the most comfortable receiver they have.
Oh, yeah.
7 catches for 115 and a touch, and it wasn't even fucking close. The next guy was Perriman with 5 for 3 at 17 yards. That's
but you know
nothing.
who – and you know what? Call me crazy for throwing caution to the wind here. But you know who else can see these stats? The San Francisco 49ers.
True.
So if I'm going to focus anyone on my team – it's to stop someone, to stop the entire Jets offense, it's going to be Brashad Perriman. Le'Veon Bell's now out. I don't know if I'd roll the dice here. If you have Perriman, hold on to him, definitely, because there's going to be good times coming. But against the Niners, I don't know if I roll the dice right there. He's the only option.
That's a great
Chris
point.
Herndon's not going to be,
So I think we're in agreement to a degree that, maybe I would throw a flyer on Crowder in a DFS lineup, but I think – we're phasing the Jets out. I think it's safe to say here, right? We're not going to be starting anyone on their roster.
Sorry, Jets fans. It's not your fault. It's on Adam Gase's
fault. It's Gase's
fault.
It's
all
on
Adam Gase.
I'll say it for you. Adam Gase, you suck. You should have been fired this year, and we're all still fucking
Never should have gotten hired.
Why you're still here.
It blows my mind. He does nothing for this team at all. I don't know whose dick he sucked. I don't know why he had the opportunity to suck a dick for this job.
Genuinely makes me angry.
Yeah, it's just
when I get very animated. It generally angered me when I heard that he was coming back this year.
It's just how? What did he show?
It's
you got this huge prize free agent acquisition. You barely use him. You supplement him with Frank Gore, who, no disrespect to Frank Gore. Frank Gore is going to the Hall of Fame at this point. What he's doing is nothing short of incredible. But when you have Le'Veon Bell, why is this a thing? That should be a major bonus, not a focal point of the offense, having Gore there.
I will say there's a guy I put on here, even though he didn't have any stats, and the reason I did that is because I really do like him down the road maybe. Michael Pirine could be a very interesting guy who, especially with Le'Veon hurt. I love Michael Pirine. It's actually Samaje Perine's brother. Samaje Perine's brother. So, but he was a much better running back in college. I do think he could be a guy that could step into that role eventually. But this team is just not there yet. They're going to get whooped by the Niners. They might surprise here or there, and I do think maybe a Josh Adams has some value. I'm not going out and buying any of these fucking running backs, even with Bell out. I don't want the backup or anyone to deal with, and I'm not wasting my
budget. You don't even want that
budget.
volume, yeah.
No,
it's not worth it.
Not worth the money. There's better guys that you can get, especially now. Like, there's a lot of guys you can get this week that are available because of how the preseason was. There was none, so we didn't know who was going to step up.
This is a great year. Actually, funny enough, that's part of the reason my strategy this year was in my auction draft to grab both McCaffrey and Barkley, was because I was like, I'm going to gamble there's enough sleepers that I can pick up that will produce just on the fact that there's not a preseason. Like, I'm not going to be able to use this strategy again unless there's another season with this much uncertainty around it.
Right.
Like, it's all based on, the values that you can find, because nobody knows what to expect. There's nobody had the chance to really break out. You're going off training camp reports.
Exactly. And now, so on the other side of this thing with the Niners, Jimmy Garoppolo, much better actually than I thought he was going to do. 19 points, not bad, 259, 2 touchdowns. It was 19 for 33. And that was – but the funniest thing is that was like all to his running backs. Raheem Mostert, Jerick McKinnon. If you look at the stats here, look at this. Look at where his receptions were, and look how many receptions were by wide receivers. Four. Crazy. So Ayuk back, that's someone who I'm intrigued with. If he's on your free agent wire, 34% owned, Debo's still on IR. You see what their value is at wide receiver. Kittle is banged up. We don't know what's going on with him. Brandon Ayuk, if he's not on your team or he's on the waiver wire, he's maybe a cheaper option. I don't know how cheap it's going to be. No one knows. No one's seen him play yet. So he could be a cheap option that's on the waiver wire. I would put him on the fab list. Brandon Ayuk should absolutely be on a roster. He's going to be good. Going to be good. I can guarantee he's going to be good. 49ers defense, I'm starting them all week. Easy.
Leave him in. Not even a question.
Staying in division with the New York Jets, AFC East, I think this team wins the division. The Buffalo Bills look fucking good, man. I mean, Josh Allen's my second QB in our league with Kyler Murray.
Actually. He's my second QB too. Oh, so you were the same. I didn't realize we had the same QB lineup.
QBs.
In my big league, we got the same. Yeah, that's
I noticed that when you told me. I was like, oh, nice. So Josh Allen, though, guy, I mean, holy shit. 312, 33 for 46, 2 touchdowns, 57 rushing yards, and another touch.
And another rushing touchdown, yeah.
John Brown, I called it, put him in my lineup.
You did. You called that right off the bat.
16 points for John Brown. I knew he was still going to be that guy, and Diggs still did pretty good. But clearly, 10 targets for John Brown, 9 for Stephon Diggs, 7 for Beasley. Yep. Those are your three guys you're rolling with in this offense in the passing game. No one's touching Dawson Knox. Don't be fooled by the 4 for 44 because he did have a fumble there. So he did have that's why it's 3.6 or whatever it is.
Dropped down a little bit there.
Yeah. So I'm not comfortable even rostering him. Cole Beasley, he was a player last year, but Diggs is kind of fading him out in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think Cole Beasley is going to have as big of a role. He's going to be that catch-up player kind of like he was for the Cowboys.
Now, Zach Moss. Listen, great. He got 10 points, but the hype that's on him, I'm not as high on that right now. Look at the stats. It's not that much better. He just had a touchdown.
I agree. That's a wait and see approach. Stash him on your bench.
Put it this way. For those that are not viewing and that might be listening, 9 rushes for Zach Moss for 11 yards, 9 rushes for Singletary for 30 yards. Very easy comparable right there. It's a 19-yard difference. 4 targets for Zach Moss, 7 for Singletary. Singletary had 5 catches for 23, but Moss had the 3 for 16 and a touch. That tells me that, two things. Singletary is still getting the volume. He's still getting the role until it lost. He lost it, right? Right. That's what it seems like. Right.
It's his job to lose.
And so this is one of those guys you roll with until he starts to fumble and things start to happen. If you can if you had both on your roster, great. You're very fucking smart. But all intents and purposes, I think for this week in particular, going up against the Dolphins, I really still like John Brown again, man. I know it's weird, and I don't like going with him back-to-back weeks because it never usually works.
Yeah, but you know what? He's got the setup for it. Yeah, this seems like the right option.
Now, Buffalo defense, I would start this week. You know what? I say that, but every time Fitzpatrick has like a 3-touch interception week, he comes back and has like a 4
He bounces back pretty well, and you know what I mean. He knows pretty much what he's doing at this point. I would stay. Fitzpatrick might be worthwhile. I would stay away from the Dolphins running backs as a whole.
Yeah.
If I'm looking
honestly, I would be so bold as you could drop Matt Breida.
Yeah, I would say that. If I'm looking at wide receivers, though, Preston Williams, I think has to be the guy. Look at that target spread. A lot of people thought it was going to be Devontae Parker.
The receptions were a letdown, though. the
Parker,
receptions and production was a letdown.
Yeah, agreed. But he was also, coming back from an injury, first game back, a little tough to go up against.
And you know what? Give Roto-World credit because they haven't said that. They were like, hey, listen, he might not be able to play this week, but he'll be productive down the road. And you know what? They were right. I actually had to go with him, and I should have started Paris Campbell, who we'll talk about also.
Yes, we will.
But yeah, I agree with you. I think Preston Williams, if he's going to have a big week, it may not be this week. It may be next week. But
it's gonna come.
The Bills, right?
It's gonna come.
Right. So I just don't know if it's going to be this week. Yeah. I am kind of phasing out the Dolphins too this week. I would start any of them. Even
Gesicki would be, if I was going to do it, probably the one I would go with.
Yeah.
Just because it's it's the way tight ends go.
Right.
At some point, it's got to click there.
Yeah. Let's be real. I mean, who would the Bills play? The week one, the Jets. All right, they didn't really have anything that crazy. We can go up here. Chris Herndon had seven targets, 6 receptions. He caught 6 balls out of
37 yards.
37. He had the fumble, so he had 670. I do agree with you that you can look at Mike Gesicki, and it could be a much better week for him there as well. There's 7 targets. If he can just get more production on that, then he can have a good week.
I agree.
But I would hesitate to say he's going to be a top 12 tight end.
Yeah, totally agree.
But going now, we're still in the 1:00 games here, Matt. We kind of went back and forth a little bit with our teams, then we went back. Now we're at the Vikings Colts, and I'm excited for this one. I was sitting here waiting for you to take your little break, and only because you already mentioned him already on the pod. He's going to be with the companion when it posts this week. Our stardom sit-em list that we're going to have out. Available every Saturday before the game to help you with your lineups on Sunday. This is a guy who Matt has on the top of his free agent waiver wire pickup, and has a pretty damn good fucking reason for it. Yep. Nyheim Hines, Matt, 19% owned, baby. You've been talking about him. I'll let you do it.
You gotta do it. He's got to roll in the offense. They know what they want him to do there. Even with Jonathan Taylor, we saw him, established already. It's not even a question. Look at this: 8 targets, 8 receptions, 45 yards. Granted, it looks like Taylor was a little bit more effective with some of his stuff, which it doesn't really take away from Hines' value. I think he's going to be there all season. That's going to be a guy that we're going to see with a consistent role, which when it comes to fantasy is not a bad thing to have a high floor like that.
You know what I noticed? 15 and 15. Very interesting number considering that's the exact amount of touches both of them had. And I have to agree with you that, a lot of people, if there's any hype right now, it's Jonathan Taylor. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
And very warranted. I mean, if you drafted him, you're probably happy right now. And good for you. Fuck you for being right. And fuck you for whoever took him before me that I couldn't get him. But it is what it is. If you have him, you might benefit. But I do agree, Nyheim Hines will be the cheaper, as just as much maybe valuable of an option as Jonathan Taylor. I do think they will use 2 running backs. We saw Phillip Rivers in Los Angeles and how he was best utilized was when he had a running back who can pound the ball and a running back who can catch the ball. We saw that before. I mean, LaDainian could do everything, but we saw it with him and Michael Thomas way back when. We saw it more recently with Gordon and Eckler. I love it. I didn't even know if I had him on my list, and you convinced me too. Nyheim Hines is a guy, 19% owned. You should be putting a waiver wire in on him.
Yep. If you can get him, get him.
Running back. If I'm looking down our list here, I believe he is our top running back outside of maybe Benny Snell that you could target. And I think production.
Maybe Malcolm.
Sorry, go ahead.
In there too. No worries. I was saying maybe Malcolm in there too. But Malcolm has a threat there with Cam Akers. We don't know how this is going to shake out. So I'd say Hines he's safer. Right. Really for lack of a better word there.
And I think they could end up using them in very different roles. We saw an even split here, but Nyheim Hines is always going to be a threat as a passer. Now there's going to be weeks that he might not be productive and Jonathan Taylor is. I still wouldn't freak out. I mean, he should absolutely be rostered. If you have John Taylor, worth the money to spend maybe $30, even $40 on Nyheim Hines. Yep. I swear on my life, because you know what? He'll have standalone value. And if Jonathan Taylor ends up getting hurt, then you have the guy. So I think like a Benny Snell. Now I think Benny Snell has a better chance of becoming the guy because of the situation. I think Jonathan's gonna cut in his carries and vice versa and so forth. But you convinced me to at least go for Nyheim Hines over Malcolm Brown. It's weird to say too, because Malcolm Brown is the guy, but like you said, Cam Akers can pop up out of nowhere. We kind of know
we never know when that's going to happen.
Right. We kind of know these two guys seem to, it could change. We could see Tom Taylor get like 30 carries and Nyheim Hines has 3 targets this week.
Yeah.
But right now, I do agree with you. I think going up against the Lions, they have. I don't know if what's his name is going to be. Why can't I remember his name? Who they just draft? I mean, it's such Jeff Okudah.
Wait. You're talking about the cornerback. My bad.
I don't know if Okudah is going to be playing. If he is, I really like Nyheim Hines this week. I really do. I think that matchup's going to be key. I'm going to see if that's later in the week. I didn't think he played last week. But that's a go-to. Now, the other guy on this team who, if he's not bought, you go and you need a receiver, you go after him, is Paris fucking Campbell.
Agreed.
I drafted him. Now, Matt, it's a funny story. You were actually popped in here, I think. No, you weren't. This was mine and Raz's draft. So this is my third league, 16-team league. And quick little story. Late round, I was doing the draft for me and Raz because he was like with his girlfriend, and he was like texting me, but he stopped texting me, right? So I didn't know who to take, and it was Irv Smith or Paris Campbell. And all I could think to myself was like, at the time, all 7-8 picks before, again, 16 teams. So between my picks, I was 11th, I think. So I had like 10 picks between or whatever it was. I'm sitting there like, all right, I'm taking Irv Smith. My pick comes, both of them are still there. I take Paris Campbell. Don't know why. Just in my head, I'm like, I just can see this is a second-round pick. You got Phillip Rivers. He likes speed. He likes this. Ty is great, but he'll get hurt or something. And I just have a feeling everyone was on this Michael Pittman bandwagon, and I know people spent some money on him.
People did.
And some capital. And Paris Campbell, I got in the I literally got in the second last round in a 16-team, 3-keeper league.
It's insane.
He was still there.
That is insane.
And so I'm like, okay, well, great. All right, I'll take that production. 9 targets for Paris Campbell, 9 for Hilton, 6 caught by Campbell for 71 yards. He also had the only end-around rush on the day. Tons of speed, a lot of talent. People want to talk about Terry McLaurin. He was the guy that was coming out that people originally thought was better than Terry McLaurin. He was a higher draft pick. He was Dwayne Haskins' guy that year where Terry kind of wasn't. I love Paris Campbell. I think he's huge value, 22% owned. And I absolutely think from the fab list, from a wide receiver standpoint, I'm looking at the list now. We have Robbie Anderson, Scotty Miller. We got, Colin Johnson.
You're convincing me right now.
I mean, if Paris Campbell is not owned, he needs to be owned this week. And I would be willing to spend $20 to $25 on him out of a $100 fab budget. I wouldn't go any higher than that because I think quarter of your budget is pretty high. And especially if you have if you're going for someone like a Benny Snell and you're putting 50 in, maybe go for like 17, 18 bucks on a Paris Campbell. See if maybe that's good enough. If not, you miss out. You still got Benny Snell. If you miss out on both, that sucks. But have a backup option there. Campbell,
backup options are key.
But Paris Campbell needs to be started. He's a starter.
Paris Campbell is actually in as my backup option if I don't get Dallas Goedert.
Yep, so. I love it. I mean, those are 2 great values. I'm so jealous that Dallas Goedert is available in your league. Just throw it out there.
Dude, I'm hoping if I wake up tomorrow, we'll be like,
man. Dude, you trust me. I gotta do all this shit. Like I'm gonna do it after this episode. But moving right along, Lions Packers divisional matchup.
Sorry. One quick note about the last game. If again, the same kind of thing here as Gardner Minshew. 2 safe options at quarterback. Rivers and Kirk Cousins are going to give you pretty consistent production here. They might not light it up, but they're not going to completely lose the game for you either. Minor side note, sorry.
Yep, must start. No one I don't think is not starting him. Adam Thielen, tank all year. I wanted him really bad in 2 different drafts. I couldn't get the money to get him in one, and he went like 2 picks before me in another. Not surprised for the 28 points for what he did. There's no other option right now. He is the guy that Kirk is going to target. Yep. They're going to figure out ways to get him open. They always do, even with the one receiver there. Actually, going back to this real quick, because we did skip over the Vikings, who the Colts are playing this week.
Oh.
Dalvin Cook had a good week, really good week. But I'll be fucking frank with you, Alexander Madison had a better one. Look at the stats.
Alexander Madison has always been that guy, though. Like, Madison would obviously be a starter on another team. So
I mean, the production, for those who can't
yeah.
see, both had 50 yards rushing on the dot. Madison did it in half the carries, 6
Literally, exactly
12.
half the carries.
Yep.
And then the receptions were the big difference maker here, too.
And
whereas
Cook
had 1 catch for -2, and Madison had 4 for 30. So really, I mean, if you can, it doesn't hurt to pick him up.
If you split the touchdowns, and it was 1-1, Madison would have been the better back this week.
Yep.
I just think that it's, again, super smart move for whoever drafted him. I didn't think he was going to be valuable whatsoever. I didn't fucking touch this team outside of Thielen.
I don't know if I'm actually curious how available.
Yeah, I mean, Madison's 45% available. He doesn't quite reach our fab list because he's a little over that, 40% mark.
It's honestly shocking to me that he is at 45%. I'm sorry to cut you off there, but it's shocking to me that he is available at 45% because anyone who knows anything about Dalvin Cook knows at some point he's going to get hurt, which is unfortunate.
Yep. Dalvin Cook effect.
Just pick up Madison, dude. When you drafted him, that should have been your target later on.
Yeah, absolutely.
Don't be afraid. If you've got a top-tier running back, don't be afraid to handcuff his backup and just stack him on your bench. Because you're going to, more often than not, you're not going to regret it if something happens. God forbid, I'm knock on wood right here. God forbid, if something happens to that guy, you don't want to have to scramble and be like, oh, God, I've got to spend my fob. Do I spend all of it just to make sure I lock this guy up? You don't want to put yourself in that position.
And he may be one of the best value handcuffs because when you talk about handcuffs, people are really stupid when they bring in some of these handcuffs and they get rid of players to have them on your bench. The ones I like to keep, I don't just bring any handcuff in. I have Austin Eckler this year. I brought in Justin Jackson because I missed out on Joshua Kelly, but my plan was Joshua Kelly, and we'll talk about him because he was the reason why. I'm dropping Justin Jackson this week. It doesn't matter. It is what it is. I knew one of them was going to emerge, and it was going to be Kelly, but hey, you never know, right?
Yeah.
But the best handcuffs to get is not a Tony Pollard. All right, Tony Pollard is one of the highest owned handcuffs in the league right now in Yahoo, 45% or something like that. There's no reason for it. Zeke's not an injury-prone guy. He's a bull back who takes all the carries essentially. And he is the antithesis of that offense. Thank you.
Oh, the focal point, not the antithesis. Antithesis would be the.
You know what though? The word sounded good. I was just gonna go with it and say fuck it, But the best handcuffs to have are guys who have standalone value. And the reason why I mention this now is because this game has probably 2 best handcuffs in the league right now. And you can say that even over guys like Darrell Williams in Kansas City. You could say that over Peyton Barber in Washington. I don't think he's a handcuff. I think he's just kind of
I think he's just got it.
With the game script.
Agreed.
Madison has standalone value. And I have a feeling he's going to get more touchdowns than you think. I think he'll have like 8 touchdowns on the year. And I think he's going to end up as a solid RB3 flex. I love that. That if you can get a handcuff that you needed to put both of them in and they can potentially do it, same with Hines and Taylor, that's big value. So in my opinion, if those guys as a handcuff are on the waiver wire, and these 2 guys in particular, those should be on the top of your list for handcuffs. Okay.
Yep.
Maybe we'll do a handcuff category. Maybe I'll do this fab list of potential handcuffs that are very high value because I think people don't quite know how to really do that. They think, I'm just going to get the backup and I'm going to hold on. And then you just waste a spot on your bench. And in a week when you need him because of a bye, well, guess what? That guy's on bye or it gets banged up. Well, guess what? That guy wasn't really, we thought he was not. I mean, he's not getting value. Well, fuck it. Get the guy who's going to give you value every week.
Yeah.
Even if you're not going to at the start because of injury, Yeah. So
no, 100%. I mean, that's obviously true. The one thing I will say to kind of piggyback off that while Dave's 100% right, you want the high value handcuff, the guy who has standalone value. But if you can't get one of those guys, definitely get the handcuff for if you got one of those top flight running backs. If you've got Christian McCaffrey, do grab his backup if you can't get the high-value backup for someone else because God forbid anything does happen there. You don't want to leave yourself in a bad situation. Yeah. What Dave's saying is if you have the choice between a high-value backup and just a, run-of-the-mill guy, take the high-value guy, especially for someone like Alexander Madison. But don't just take that as an excuse that, I don't need to handcuff, one of my huge volume guys.
I realize, like, Tony Pollard's not exactly the best example of what I'm trying to say here, but maybe the better example would be like –
yeah, well, because –
Christian McCaffrey's backup, even though he's a high-value guy. Are you going to get Bonifant and keep him on your bench all year? You don't even know who the backup really is. Where value. Whereas you can have Alexander Madison, and God forbid Christian McCaffrey goes down, regardless if Dalvin Cook is there, you still have value. So it depends. You're right. Tony Pollard, if you have like Zeke, McCaffrey, it's hard with McCaffrey because you don't know who exactly the backup is. But if you have Zeke or Saquon and you want to keep Wayne Gallman or Tony Pollard, go for it. I'm not saying not do that. But if you have a chance, if you have Dalvin
to get someone like Alexander Madison,
right? Or if your running backs are weak and you're like, well, I'm going to steal one of these handcuffs so someone else can't.
So someone else, take the high value guys.
Take the high value guys, right? Exactly. Naeem Hines should be top of the list. Madison's a close second. Benny Snell should be up there too. All three of those guys. I just think at any point these guys can be starters and still give you value on a week-to-week basis. Now, Lions, we kind of have someone there, maybe, but it's the opposite, right? We don't have the guy who's spelling from a receiving perspective, not getting as many touches, but getting volume because DeAndre Swift's not going anywhere. And he's, I think he's drafted by most guys, 91%. But the guy who started, the guy who got 93 yards, and the guy who had more receiving yards and was more consistent there was old man Adrian Peterson, man. I love him. I love him.
This guy is just possibly immortal. He might be up there with Frank Gore. But at that same time, do you think this is something that can be relied upon for the future? Do you think he's going to be the week in, week out starter, or is he going to get phased out?
I think what you're seeing here is what's going to be outside of the receiving. I think the receiving is going to end up being DeAndre Swift more down the road. I think you're going to see Adrian Peterson consistently get maybe 15 carries. Whether he gets 90 yards every time, that's a different story. He might have, between 70 and 90, but he needs the volume to get going. And that's definitely at his age, so I wouldn't be surprised to actually see his carries go up. And he gets 20 plus, and he has 100 yards.
Ride him through. I mean, they got a workhorse at a bargain price. You know what I mean? Nobody was really expecting Washington to kind of let him go right there, and he obviously still has a lot left in the tank. And even Ron Rivera said that. It wasn't because of anything he did wrong. He's just not the future of the team.
Right.
Which,
it was our scheme
as a Washington fan, that should be super exciting to you.
Right.
To know that he's still this good and that they have a plan above that is,
right.
Awesome.
Now, granted, I would have loved to have the 14 rushes for 93 yards because apparently we couldn't run the ball on the Eagles, even with their injuries. So that's concerning. But I will say this about AP. He did this last year in a really bad offensive season for a Washington Redskins team. That was really bad. The line was decimated. No Trent Williams. Scherf was injured. Morgan Moses was hurt all year. Yeah. Flowers played well, strangely enough. But AP had this weird safe floor where it was 7 to 8 fantasy points, which in a PPR league. So and generally that was without receptions and stuff. So if he can get a couple receptions, that can only help his value if he does this. And he was good when he caught the ball. They just never throw.
Right.
I think the floor for him is pretty safe. 7 points, he'll get you. He's worth a pickup, 100%. He's not just a guy who's going to get it this 1 week and then Carry-On's going to be there. I think he took Carry-On's role.
I think 100%.
I think he took Carry-On's role.
I'm actually dropping Carry-On.
Yeah. And a prime drop candidate, 69% owned. You could drop him. You don't need him. DeAndre Swift is the more consistent guy. Even with 9.8, not overly impressive, but he got the touchdown. He did drop that shit at the end, which was awful, but he's clearly going to get involved.
And the key thing to note with dropping Carry-On here, if you're like, oh, I don't know, he's still, a crucial part of this offense, he averaged 2 yards a carry.
Right. 2 yards a carry, literally. He only had 7 less carries than AP, and he had
he had the second most carries on the team. They gave him opportunities here.
Right.
Is what we're seeing is they clearly gave him opportunities, and he did nothing with them.
Exactly.
So
now
I
receiving,
think unfortunately, injuries kind of caught up to him.
Now receiving, I don't really feel like there's anything truly relevant here. I'm not really comfortable starting any of these guys. If I need to, unless it's Kenny Golladay, you throw him in if you're starting. But.
I mean, TJ Hawkinson might deserve a look or two here, but I think a lot of that was. I would say I think a lot of that's because Golladay was out, though.
It's very possible. It's very possible that's because Golladay was out, although people did predict that this is the year for TJ. I didn't take any stock in him. I know year 2 is when rookie tight ends really get it going. That's what we saw Noah Fant kind of get going. I really like TJ Hawkinson, but not this week against Minnesota. I just think that their defense is pretty well equipped to handle tight ends. And then if you want any proof of that, we could just scroll right up to Kyle Rudolph's only 3 targets to tight ends. Now, maybe that was Kirk, but maybe it was also because they didn't give him the tight ends. And their interior, the linebackers in particular, pretty fucking good still there in Minnesota.
Yep.
It's the secondary that I have major concerns with. And when you're going against an Aaron Rodgers who put up 32-44 for 364 and 4 touchdowns and was just lights out all over the fucking place. It was a highlight reel. You had 3 receivers who had over 16 fantasy points and a half-point PPR. That's where I'm focusing all my efforts when it comes to the one side of things. On the other side of things here, TJ Hawkinson, he could play well. I just don't trust it. I'm not going anywhere near the Lions this week, unfortunately. Even Matthew Stafford, I would kind of phase him out.
Matt Stafford's been so sneaky good, and even though I'm on record as being a Matt Stafford hater, because I think he ruined Megatron's career. But
in my opinion, though, he kind of gave you a shit performance in week 1 against
Chicago.
This
wasn't a great performance on his part, but to his credit, last year he was arguably through the first 8 weeks an MVP candidate. Yeah. So it's possible that with what they're doing with this offense now that comes back, but it looks like, again, it's kind of centered on his top receiver.
I agree.
So if Galladay comes back healthy, then Stafford probably has a lot greater deal relevance.
I think if Galladay's in, Stafford is a good play. Because I think it will spread the field. It'll open up TJ a little bit more. It can open up Marvin Jones. It can open up DeAndre in the run back position. If he's not, I'm personally sitting Matthew Stafford this week. I'm not trusting that against that.
Yeah, if you got somebody else,
it could be very different. I could be wrong. The divisional games are so fucking tricky. But I just look at, they listen, they didn't do great last week against Minnesota's passing attack, and Minnesota only had one fucking guy too, in Adam Thielen. But look what Adam Thielen did. Look how he ate. And they still didn't have anyone over there. Now, granted, they didn't have Jeff Okudah, or I'm sorry, I'm looking at the wrong game. They did have just the Packers, so they had everyone. You were still able to do some things against him running the ball. Yeah. Now, I think Adrian Peterson could have an interesting game, but I don't think this run attack is the same as the Minnesota run attack. Let's be honest here. Yeah. I do think the Packers win this game. I do think it's somewhat close if Kenny Galladay is going. If not, I may only feel comfortable playing TJ Hawkinson, and that I'm still kind of worried about. On the other side, I'm good. There's the obvious. Aaron Rodgers, Devontae Adams,
Aaron Rodgers, the vengeful god. I mean, I don't know what the hell Matt LaFleur is thinking over there. Let's move up to to pick up the,
Listen, when you throw half of your targets to a guy who caught all but 3 of them, you're going to have a good day. You're going to have a good day,
I mean, and it's still, Aaron, a lot of people were sleeping on him. I'm like, I really don't understand why he's not being hyped up right now, and he's pissed off. And pissed off Aaron Rodgers is scary.
Yep. And he's proving the pissed off part. I mean, you got Valdez-Scantling getting 17 points, and he dropped a few passes here or there.
Yeah. And Allen Lazard.
I mean, you want to talk about DeAndre Hopkins as your number one. Devontae's mine right now. I mean, if he does what he's doing and Rodgers plays like that, I'm all in. You're not going to be out, but like he's going to be my wide receiver 1 this year.
Imagine if the Packers had just like an ounce of brains in there. I don't know what their cap situation is, but imagine if they made the move and picked up Hopkins.
Imagine if they didn't take a quarterback and
that's what I'm saying. Imagine
now 4-string running back in the first
Imagine if they had Devontae Adams and DeAndre Hopkins at the same time.
But even what about if they had DeAndre Hopkins and and Javonte Adams and Brandon Ayuk or Henry Ruggs? Ruggs went a little higher, but maybe.
This is a deep year. Jerry Jeudy. There's a lot of guys.
Anyways, so
scary business.
Running back wise, Aaron Jones is still the guy. I think it was a somewhat lackluster week. He scored. He's the goal line guy. I saw that. It's very obvious that he's getting carries. Jamal Williams is the handcuff if you're going to do that. A.J. Dillon can be dropped. 16% owned. Don't know why. Devontae Adams, stud. Start him. Put him in. get on your knees, put a towel down, whatever you got to do. He's gonna fucking do.
He's gonna do some things.
MVS and Alan Lazard, that's the big question here, I think, because tight ends are non-existent on this team. I think Alan Lazard, in my opinion, is the better option.
You said Lazard?
Lazard, yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Totally agree. I made the mistake of dropping him in one league, and I regretted it almost immediately.
MVS
I don't want to talk about who I picked up instead. It was not a good choice.
We won't mention it here, but listen, MVS is gonna fail people this week. I just don't trust him. He had one really nice catch, sure, but Alan Lazard, very consistent, got the rush. If they utilized him there, he did pretty good on that. And even 30.
And that's a big thing, actually. That jet sweep, if a team's willing to do that with the player, that shows a lot of confidence.
100%.
You know what I mean? Like, so that means they're a pretty reliable part of that offense. And Aaron Rodgers specifically said he wanted Lazard, on the field more times last year.
Right.
So I think you're pretty safe in trusting him.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you look at this, 42% owned, the percentages went away. Now MVS is worth an ad. I mean, 7% owned. I mean, if you can get it for cheap,
if you can get him, I agree. Like, I wouldn't put more than
people are going to look at
5%,
6 targets, 96
like,
yards, touchdown. He's number 2 for that team with Aaron Rodgers. People are going to spend.
He had one big run though. He had that one big run, which is kind of, I don't want to say a lucky break, but it factors in here.
Right, 100%. I'd rather have the consistency. And he did have some bad drops. I do think, like you said, Lazard is more trusted by Aaron Rodgers. And I think he's going to end up being the number 2 by the end of the year. So I think, 42%, he's on the cusp of that fab list. I'm not going to put him on there, but I mean, shit, if he's available in your league, you better go out and fucking get him.
Yeah.
I'm kind of surprised it's only 42%, to be honest with you. Granted, I wasn't high on him either, but number 2, I feel like there'd be more there. Now, the next game, we fucking hate this team, of course, the Cowboys, Falcons going into Dallas. I hope they all get 0 fucking points, but let's face it, they're not going to. This Falcons defense is trash. And when I mean trash, I mean 38 points trash. They got manhandled, and I think it was more. It was like 53-25 or some shit like that. Like whatever it was. I think I have the wrong score here, but this is pretty much what it felt like. 53-25 against Seattle. Russell Wilson had his way with this team. But the good thing, Matt, is the Falcons can pass the ball too. Calvin Ridley, big week. Julio, big week. And amazingly enough, check out the targets and receptions for the 3 receivers of the Falcons.
Very, very well spread out there. I mean, Gurley
well
didn't
spread out, identical. Guys,
yeah.
If people at home not seeing this, 12 targets for Ridley, 12 targets for Jones, 12 targets for Gage, 9 receptions for all.
I'm sorry. I was looking at the wrong section here. Excuse me. Excuse the hell out of me. I was looking at the running back receptions. I was saying spread out.
Oh, yeah,
That's fucking ridiculous.
Ridiculous. All 100-yard players. The only reason why Ridley went off is because of the 2 touchdowns. But either way, he still would have had, 21 fantasy points, 2015. This is a combo that I like, man. And that was against Seattle. Seattle's defense
no joke.
But not a joke.
They're not,
team.
yeah.
Now, we need this to be a shootout for that to happen again. Because let's face it, the reason why there's so many targets is because they're losing, like 53.
Yeah. Well, here's the reason it should be a shootout, and also the reason it won't be a shootout. Dak Prescott. He needs to kind of prove himself this year if he wants to get that big contract. He's looking at, some of these other guys, even in Texas, getting paid. And, he needs to perform to live up to that. But so the Cowboys are kind of damned if he does, damned if he doesn't. Because if he does perform, they got to pay him. If he doesn't, then they're looking at Andy Dalton, which is, no matter what you think of Dak Prescott, Andy Dalton's a step down.
I agree.
The thing here is his receivers are good. It's a question of how they're going to spread the ball out. I don't know if I trust Mike McCarthy to run this offense the right way.
Right. I agree.
So,
and, I will say it's nice and encouraging if you're a Amari Cooper owner. 14 targets compared to 6 and 5 for the other 2 guys.
Yeah.
Clearly, he's still the number one, and that was something that we doubted. I know we talked about this, and I'll admit it. I thought he was going to have a really down year, and it was going to end up being CD and Michael Gallup really stepping up. Now, they didn't have terrible weeks. I mean, CD had a decent week. He had 5 for 59.
This will be the bigger test for them, I think.
I agree.
You know, sorry to cut you up, but the fact that they're going up against, like you said, a trash defense kind of gives us the opportunity to see, like, all right, how talented are these guys? What's the spread really going to be like? Because we both discussed this previously. We're kind of high on Gallup this year. Whereas he's going to be that sneaky guy that everyone's focused on Amari already. Everybody's, looking at the shiny new toy in CeeDee Lamb, and Gallup's silently been a killer there for years. He's like a ninja on that offense. And he's already got the rapport with Prescott. So he has great opportunity here to break out, and nobody's really looking at him. I got him for, I think, $6 in my auction.
I mean,
it might have been less.
Great value for those guys. Now, actually, in mine, they actually went a little higher, both of them. And I think people were catching on what the rumors were about what they're going to do. But I'll be honest, it was really made me out on Amari Cooper. A lot of my drafts, and you know what? Part of me is like, damn, I could have used him. But that all being said, 10 for 81. It was good, but not amazing. Dak looked good. 25 for 39, 266 a touch, 3 for 30. Not overly impressive. But again, I do agree with you. You look at the target share, 24 rushes around, 25 receptions, pretty even. I think they do lean a little bit more on the run to a degree at some point in this game. But yes, I do expect at least 2 of these receivers to eat. I just don't know which 2, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Amari's going to be the surefire. I think he'll still get you like 10 points. And I just don't know if it's going to be all 3 of them, if it's going to be one of them. I personally like to think DK Metcalf had a good game, and Amari Cooper kind of mirrors that player a little bit on the roster, whereas Tyler Lockett's more like the other guys. So I want to see how it's spread out. But I do expect them to get Zeke a little bit more involved in the pass. It was cool to see him get 3 for 31 in the touch, though, even though I hate him.
Yeah, I mean, he's the star of Return of the Jedi. He's going to get fed sometimes.
The best thing I heard was about the stupid fucking tattoo that he has on his stomach now.
Oh, it's awful.
It's terrible. And I heard the best thing was like, and it was good point. It's like, yeah, I can't wait to see that in 40 years when he has like a fat ass belly. It's going to be the best tattoo ever. Like, then I'll respect it. But anyway, so I think when it comes down to these guys, the value, the Yahoo stats have 14.88 for Amari, about 12.5 for both the other guys. I think it's pretty accurate. I think it's hard to see which of these 2 other receivers are going to really step up. But
high floor guys. High
floor guys. I do think that they all get at least over 9 points this week. I don't know about 12. Again, if you have other better guys, outside, if you're going up against, like, for Michael Gallup or Julio, you start Julio. You know what I'm saying? But at the end of the day, I really like Michael Gallup over some of the other guys out there. Even potentially DJ Chark, who I was really high on. You might be able to slide him in there. Although, just part of me, Chark's going with 20 points this week. So I'm not going to say that. I don't want to put him on the list. My go-to this week in this game in particular, because they are playing the Rams, is going to be the featured passing game. I mean, so that's what we kind of came to. Zeke might have a decent game. I think he might actually have a down game this week, unless they get him involved in the pass the way they did. Moving on, we have the Giants game, Bears. We discussed that. We discussed the team and the Cardinals game.
Yeah.
And now we're going down to a game that I'm super interested to talk about just because Bill O'Brien just fucking cracks me up, man. He really does. The Ravens-Texans, do we even think the Texans have a chance of winning this game? Because honestly, it's one of those games I think they actually do win.
No, it's one of those things where he was going to pull us out of his ass. But what's crazy for me about this is Deshaun Watson and the Texans defense are going, which I know there's a reason I said it this way, are going up against 2 of the best quarterbacks in football.
Yep.
Like it's going to be a coin toss this year for which one of these guys wins MVP. And Watson's just sitting there kind of like perennial 3rd or 4th. He's going to be a top 5 guy, but he just can't seem to close that gap. And the team's doing him no favors. And this poor defense is going to be gassed. You got to hope J.J. Watt stays healthy for a whole season again.
What pisses me off with Deshaun Watson is it always seems like he shits half the game away and cannot do shit. And then all of a sudden in the 4th quarter, when their team is out of it and the game is like, he'll start to come back and he'll end up putting up like 20 points.
Yeah.
And I don't know why. It happens every year. You know, you look at this 253 touchdown, a pick, 27 yards rushing and a touchdown. Doesn't seem impressive. He put up 20 points. You know, and if he could do that against KC, I think he could do it again this week. Difference is, I think this Ravens defense is a little bit better, in my fucking personal opinion. They fucking put up 16 points against the Browns, but it's the Browns. That being said, I still think David Johnson is an easy start for you. RB1, they're going to give him volume. He's going to be the guy.
And he looks like he's back finally. Good for him.
11 for 77, average 7 yards a carry. Love seeing that. Yeah. 3 for 32. He averaged over 10 yards.
He had that one big run pretty early on. I was like, okay.
Yeah.
DJ's back.
Yep. Right there I saw that. I'm like, okay, good pick. Glad about that. Yeah. Duke Johnson, you can face the fuck out if you have him 35% owned. I'm stunned to even see that. You can face him. I mean, if you want to keep him as a handcuff, go for it, because David Johnson does get hurt. But if you have him and you don't have David Johnson, get the fuck rid of him. You're not gonna use him. Will Fuller, I'm staying away from receivers from this team until
who can you trust here? Who can you trust?
Never stay healthy.
Brandon Cooks, same kind of thing. If he comes back, maybe we could see some kind of stability there. My real issue is that Bill O'Brien traded away this team's number one receiver, and now they're in desperate need of a number one receiver. Yep. And it's kind of like, who could have seen this coming aside from everyone?
Oh, well, Kenny Stills is back this week, though. Hold up. Hold the fucking phone.
Like, what happened to Kiki Cutie? Is Kiki Cutie? Because somebody, I argued this when it first happened, when the trade first came up, with actually the Finn dude was involved in this conversation too, which I'm sure at some point you'll have him on a guest on this show too.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll have to have the three of us on here.
Oh my God. But whatchamacallit? So it's. I never saw really the truth of these weapons, because, like, yes, are they all talented in their own right? Absolutely. But can they all be healthy at the same time? Probably not.
It's like looking at a lot of wide receiver threes.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what it feels like with a wide receiver 2 sprinkled in.
It's wide receiver threes. They're all wide receiver threes with wide receiver 1 upside.
Right. At one point in their career, they've all been like a number 1 somewhere, it seems like. Right? That's kind of what he means by that.
Yeah, they all have that potential, but like, can you trust any of them to do it? Will Fuller's probably the best bet. Right. And 10 targets, 8 receptions, 112 yards is good, but Will Fuller's always been boom or bust. I don't believe he can hold that up for a full season or even more than 3 weeks in a row.
And let's be frank, KC corners aren't Baltimore's corners. I mean, they don't have Kendall Fuller anymore. They didn't have Rashawn Breeland, who were their 2 guys that won them a Super Bowl last year. They have new guys. And it showed, to a degree. But it showed with Will Fuller. I mean, they did get it going after a while. I will say this, as long as he's healthy, you roll with Fuller. If you're going to roll with someone, unless you have 3 studs, or you need to start 2 studs or 3 studs, I would say phase him out if you can in this week, because I wouldn't want to put him in against Baltimore at all. Marlon Humphrey there, and that pass rush could be a fucking problem if they can't get the run going. It's going to be telegraphed. Yep. So
agreed.
Will Fuller, though, the targets are there. You use him until he's hurt. It's same shit with some of these other guys. Like he's one of those horses you ride until his leg breaks, right? So it is what it is. You kind of just hope and pray that he's going to stay healthy. I personally would want to go for a more consistent option, someone that I know, or rather who I know at least has a more better chance of not getting hurt. Like, this guy has like a 96% chance that he's going to get hurt at one point in this game. All right. And if he does get hurt in this game, we're going to come back to this little clip and we're going to post this and say, this is what we said. And this is why, because this is what the fuck happened. Like, literally.
The Rise and Fall pod was correct.
The Rise and Fall pod was correct. We heard it here first, folks. Everyone else we're not going with. Texans, I didn't even put the projections. I'm not starting their defense against the Ravens. Next game, another interesting game. Chiefs-Chargers. Now we're in the. I don't think the Chargers have what it takes to stay in this game. I don't mean that in any form of disrespect. I just think the Chiefs are too high-powered. Can I ask one really specific thing?
You absolutely can.
Why is Tyrod Taylor still getting jobs in the NFL?
Tyrod Taylor's not bad. He's really not.
But is he good? No, your pause told me everything I need to know, because if you ask any fucking person that question, is Tyrod Taylor good?
It's like he's not. My response, I think anybody else say the same thing. He's not bad. Like, Tyrod Taylor's not going to lose you a game at any point, but he's not going to be the guy to.
He's a poor man's Alex Smith.
Yeah, honestly, that's very accurate.
That's the poor man you want to be,
Yeah, I mean, it's like can they ball at certain times? Sure, but they're not gonna be the like, holy shit, this guy just won me my week. It's a sleeper pick forever.
Now,
They're the hold down the fort guys.
I will say one thing, that he did not have 6 interceptions.
Oh my God.
But that wasn't what I was gonna say. But I will say he did try to go deep a lot, which is something that I didn't expect.
The ladies like.
Or am I thinking of him? I think I think he went deep. No, he tried to go deep. I was watching the game because I had Eckler. He tried to go deep a little bit more.
It seems
you
like
saw 9 targets to Mike Williams, 8 to Keenan Allen. The volume's there.
Yeah, and
but
like
I just don't trust him.
And Mike Williams is my guy too, but yeah, same kind of thing. And it's a question of when Justin Herbert's ready. I don't even know if I like Justin Herbert as the future of this team, which is crazy because at one point he was considered the top overall quarterback prospect.
Yep, I agree.
So I don't know if it helped or hurt him to stay in. I mean, Keenan Allen's also nasty. It is crazy that Keenan Allen only had half of his targets pulled in like that.
Yeah, I mean that's the Tyrod Taylor effect. He's not a thrower. And 208 yards pretty much proves me right. Or this whole thing's off because I didn't put the pass efficiency what he put up the numbers. But he didn't run the ball either. Where I didn't see this going to affecting them in a negative way, that was, and now it's kind of concerning me, is Austin Eckler. Because I expected Tyrod Taylor to throw the ball to the running backs a lot and dump it down and be Tyrod dump down. You know what I mean? Like Tyrod.
Yeah, which would have made a lot of sense. They have the weapons for that, but It's possible that God, what is the coach's name? I like him too. I can't remember. Anthony Lynn.
Anthony Lynn, yeah.
Anthony Lynn is trying to run the same kind of offense so that when Herbert does come in, he doesn't get the wrong idea. It's possible that they're trying to be like, push it downfield, like, just have it set up so that when Herbert eventually does take the reins, he's like, this is the way we're going to run it. He doesn't learn any bad habits about just constantly dumping off, which would be Tyrod's strength.
Agreed. Now, in my leagues, he's not available, but now I'm looking at this. I didn't even notice this before. Joshua Kelly, 12% owned in Yahoo Fantasy Leagues. He needs to be owned right away. If you have Austin Eckler, you need to go after him and get him as your handcuff. He's a similar situation to Alexander Madison. He's a similar situation to, who else do we say here? Alexander Madison, right? Nyheim Hines, right? He's a similar situation to that from a different perspective. He's not the pass catcher. He's the runner. But he had 12 rushes for 60 yards, and he had the touchdown. He's getting the goal line carries. That's big. His competition was not with Austin Eckler. It was with Justin Jackson, and it looks like he won that. So Eckler scares me. I think he has a bounce-back week because of the tone of this game. You're looking at the Cincinnati game, and that was a 16-13 game. The script seemed to be not passing the ball a lot, right? And that's why I guess I don't have Tyrod Taylor's passing stats here. But we can kind of see. They only had 18 attempts passing the ball. I think that, or 19 attempts. I think that gets upped a little bit. I think Eckler has a really good week. He's one of my prime bounce back risers of the week. Not just because I'm hopeful. I do believe he's going to have a really good week. And they are going to be probably playing from behind, going up against the Chiefs with Tyrod Taylor at quarterback. I am not touching the receivers this week, though. I need to see more from Tyrod before I'm comfortable. Keenan Allen, he's probably one of your number ones, number two, so you're probably going to start him.
I might roll the dice on Mike Williams as a deep threat here. I might roll the dice on him.
I can name 5 receivers right now off the top of my head that I would rather start over Mike Williams right now. Paris Campbell, right? DJ Chark obviously is an easy one. But
We're saying guys in this range, like not the obvious starters.
Right. I would start like Laviska Shenault over.
Really?
If I had to choose over Mike Williams, I would. I don't like Mike.
Really?
Williams. I don't. Okay. Like him. When he's not doing mediocre shit, he's getting hurt. And that's what it feels like all the time.
I mean, his second year, he was a bit of a revelation, but we discussed that. He was great that year, and I feel like I've loved him since then.
He's very
boomer bust, yes.
Right?
Yes,
like that's and I feel like Paris Campbell, and when I look at things, and I'm going to go for like wide receiver 3 or a flex, I look for consistency, not just the boomer bust, because if you get hurt big, you get hurt big. And Mike Williams hurts people a lot. So maybe not Laviska Shenault, but if I'm looking at Robbie Anderson, or I'm looking at a guy like what I just said, I'm forgetting the name now, Paris Campbell, right?
Paris Campbell,
those are guys that I would absolutely put in over Mike Williams.
Yeah, and guys that are more than likely still available in leagues to grab. So Mike Williams,
Alan Lazard, another guy that I would put in over Mike Williams. Those are guys that I'm talking about here. Sammy Watkins. Maybe I don't personally trust him.
I personally want to give him one more week before I trust him. If you have, here's what
over Marquise Brown,
Oh my
another guy
God,
I would
yeah.
start
Oh my
easily
God,
over there,
yeah.
right? You know,
Yeah.
So Willie Snead. If I had to choose between Willie Snead and Mike Brown, I would choose Willie Snead right now. 4 for 4, 64 yards and a touchdown. It's not sexy, but neither to me is Mike Williams. I just don't
It's consistent.
love it.
It's not sexy, but it is consistent.
Exactly. So I just think that
I'm just saying
we're talking about number twos or guys who that boom or bust potential. There are a lot more better options and guys you could pick up in the free agent wire. We're going to put this list together, and I'm going to fucking break that shit down. And I'm going to say, stay the fuck away from Mike Williams. Go for these guys instead. And if I'm wrong, I'll buy you a fucking beer. I'll buy you a 6-pack. Okay.
6-pack.
Going down, Keenan Allen. What's up?
Milwaukee's best.
Milwaukee's best. The finest in the land. Hunter Henry is top 8 TE for me. I think you start him. 8 targets.
Yeah.
If he gets that, I'm cool with that. That's
you got him. Go with him.
Yep. Chargers, you're not starting that defense against Casey. Just move past that.
Stay far away.
Very interesting game to a degree, but Patriots Seahawks. We're getting near the end here.
Little Super Bowl rematch.
With
to a degree, almost nobody left.
Right, but a new quarterback, whole new Patriots team. It seems like. I mean, it looked like it too. They did not look great.
I feel like a lot of people probably saw this coming with Cam Newton. Yeah, you had to know Bill Belichick saw something when they brought him in. You had to know they were going to have something special in that offense. Drawing up just from a takeover. You knew they were going
to change the whole scheme and make it a run option and 15 rushes for 75 and 2 touchdowns,
How do you not? And it's going to be a safer run option than it was before. I guarantee you with this, he's going to be taking less hits. He'll probably stay healthy for the whole season.
Right. Now, here, if you notice, I didn't even put the stats for the running backs because I'm not touching them. I have a strict rule
Fully agreed.
New England
Patriots running backs.
Patriots running backs, you stay the fuck away.
I'm with you. I actually drafted Damian Harris and stashed him on IR. I will use him as a package for a trade later at best if he ends up taking over a role there. But for the most part, the thing that makes New England running backs so scary isn't the fact that they're not talented. It's that they are talented and that this offense will morph from week to week. You have no idea who the starter is going to be, and that's what they rely on. That element of surprise is part of what makes New England so good and Belichick such an effective everything coordinator, coach, GM.
Fantasy World had a term for this back in the era when he was a coach. Shanahanigans, right? So Mike Shanahan was a big component of these, and even Kyle Shanahan for a while was a big component of like committees. And there is no bigger Shanahanigan piece of shit coach in the league than Bill Belichick. Love him to death. I'm not saying that in a bad way. I'm just saying he's the guy who you cannot trust the running backs. Stay away from them. Sony Michel, 70% owned, 85% owned for James White. White's more value because he did have a much better floor, but that floor seems to not be there right now, and you don't touch that. Julian Edelman, I'd be hard-pressed to put him in as a flex right now. I would. I mean, he's going to be the all-around guy.
His role's going to change. His role is going to change for sure here.
I think later this season he'll be more of that wide receiver 3 with Cam once Cam gets more into the offense. Remember, there are schemes that they have in New England are hard. And even though they changed the offense, I'm sure there's still things Cam's learning. He came in late.
Yeah, 100%. 100%, yeah.
But offensively, I am worried that this team is – forget just Tom Brady. You look at this. They're depleted. They have no tight ends. They have no.
I was waiting to get to Ryan Izzo so I could be like, oh.
Yeah, right. Like, who the fuck is Ryan Izzo?
I'm gonna go up to Foxborough myself and just try out for tight end. Why not?
It's ridiculous how depleted they are. I'd be stunned if they win the division this year. If the Bills lose this, it's on them. Seahawks again. I think we really see the Patriots get exposed this week. I think this is the week, guys. The week that I feel like 97%, 98%, pretty much everyone that wasn't a Patriots fan is waiting for, baby.
Dude,
that's
Russell Wilson
Patriots get spanked.
Russell Wilson's just, oh my God, unlimited. I haven't even seen him say that, but like.
Mr. Unlimited. Literally backed up his fucking talk. It was the cringiest thing I ever witnessed. But it was, you know what? He was Mr. fucking Unlimited. 31 for 35. 322, 4 TDs, 3 for 29 yards rushing.
Yeah.
He had
Greg Olsen put in a little bit of work there too.
Greg Olsen put in work with a touchdown. DK Tyler Lockett 8 for 92. Yeah. Very consistent guy.
He got if you look at the spread of where Russell Wilson's attempts went, I mean, it was super fucking effective. Chris Carson, 6 for 6. DK, 8 for 4 was the only, like you just said, was the only one who really lost out.
And we expect
Lockett,
that for
8 for
DK.
8. Moore,
We
3 for
expect
3.
that, you know?
Yeah,
Yeah, exactly.
that's who he is.
You have four for Olsen, 2 for Disley. He's spreading the ball around. And what I noticed and what a lot of people talked about is they opened it up. Something they have not done in years past. I didn't know doing this when I drafted him that they were going to do it this year. Well, I'm excited if they keep doing it.
I would say the big thing right now with Wilson too is that look at DK's stats here again. You know, he dropped or lost half of his targets, and Wilson clearly did not shy away from him. He was the leading receiver. He scored the only touchdown, out of that receiving core. That's huge.
Yeah.
Like that, Wilson is not scared. He's got a short memory when it comes to stuff like this. Like if you got Wilson or you can start Wilson, do it.
DK only needs a little separation, and Russell will put it on the fucking money. And I saw a couple of the plays. It was drops by DK. It happens. He was trying to force some of them in there. 31 for 35. You're not going to complain about that percentage at all any day of the week. Even if your guy went 4 for 8, he still had 95. The big play, the touchdown. Tyler Lockett's consistent as shit. He's an easy wide receiver too. Every week you could throw him in. In my opinion, his floor is starting to become much higher. Tyler Lockett's like 11-point floor in a half-point PPR now.
What was it, like 5 or 6 years ago? Tyler Lockett got really hurt during a game.
Yeah,
like really hurt. Really hurt. Like it was, because I think I was actually in. It was around Halloween, like 5. Yeah, it was like 5 years ago. So like, this is crazy that he's been able to come back and like it's just.
And be stud. Yeah, even if they have a DK, he could be the number one as that tiny guy. Tyler Lockett locked in, DK lock in, Carson locked in as a RB1, in my opinion. If or if you have like Saquon to be like RB2, but he's locked in as your second or first RB easily. He's
and I would say his day really got saved by those receiving touchdowns.
100%.
His rush numbers were not great.
And put it this way, if they go away from the pass again, well, then he's going to have the rushes. So I think the fact that we saw him benefit from a very pass-heavy, I mean, look at that, 13 rushes compared to 35 passes.
6 for 6, yeah.
And he caught all 6, got production and a touchdown on the screenplay there. He looked really good and really explosive, too. I watched some of the highlights. So I'm really pumped. If you have Chris Carson, be happy. This is a year that you can be really excited for him. He's finally kind of coming into that number one role without the fumbles involved and shit. Tight ends, Greg Olsen is listen, if you need a tight end, he's on the waiver wire, 26%.
Go for it.
He's an interesting ad. Disley is not addable right now, but Olsen is. Olsen is 4 for 4, 24. It's not sexy, but again, if you need someone because of Kittle injury and
he's doing it, and like tight end's tough to come by. You know what?
But there's a lot of good tight ends, though. There's a lot of good ones. We talked about 3 already that would be higher, in my opinion, on the list than maybe even Greg Olsen. So
Goddard's obviously the go-to guy here. I just realized, though, I need to consider that with my free agency bid since Kittle.
Yeah, I mean, this is why we do this, man. We're getting some late-time review here. Ideally, I would love to do this live, so if anyone was watching, they could have got this advice beforehand. But it's okay, because if you guys see this or listen to this and then you see the results and we're right, you'll come back, right? So final game, Matthew. It's been a long journey here today. We got the Saints Raiders on the Monday night game.
Which I don't know if I love this game for Monday night.
I don't either. The Saints scare the shit out of me. I'll be honest with you.
Saints without Michael Thomas is going to be a little bit rough of a watch. I don't know if Emmanuel Sanders fully shoulders that role.
If you're thinking
that you put the Kamara show.
If you're thinking you put Sanders in place of Michael Thomas, don't. I agree with Matt. I think that he could do some things, but he's not Michael Thomas. Okay, they
just paid Kamara for a reason too. Yeah,
right.
They just paid Kamara for a reason. It's going to go. Cook's going to get a lot of those looks too.
Put it this way: Kamara had 8 targets. Sanders had 5, and Michael Thomas went out in that game with an injury. So clearly, even after, they were still targeting him. He was more productive.
Because he went out kind of early too, right?
He went out pretty early, like mid-game. Yeah, mid-game, I think. Jared Cook, I'll be surprised. I'll be the first to admit it. He had a pretty good game. 5 for 80, 7 targets. You get that. That's a guy who I think could be featured this week. Especially because Thomas is not in. I love Jared Cook. He might be one of my tight end starts of the week this week when the list comes out on Saturday.
Yeah, 100%. If you can do it, do it.
If you get a touchdown in here, that's 16 points, right? So it's like, okay, that's good stuff. And let's be real. The real only threat, like you said, is Alvin Kamara. I love that for this week. Now, Lat Murray had 15 rush points this week against Tampa Bay. I don't know if he does that this week. I'd be hard pressed to say, but well, I'll say this: he should have much higher than a 6.7 point value because of the injury to Michael Thomas. They're going to use two right. I wouldn't be surprised if we see Alvin Kamara line up at like slot or something like that.
That'd be smart.
So I think
would be very smart.
That's what I would do. I mean,
I wouldn't
Murray
put that past Sean Payton.
No, exactly. And Lat Murray, I think, goes above the 6-point value. I don't think you start him unless you have injuries. He could be a flex guy for you, but Kamara's stud. You start him this week. Even though it could be stacked against him, that would only, I have a feeling Sanders could do enough to open it up a little bit. As Traquan Smith is pretty speedy too. So maybe they can do enough to open it up. Jared Cook could be enough of a threat that it opens it up for Kamara. So we'll see. The injury could be a real big thing. We just don't know how they're going to look without. We saw how Michael Thomas looked without Drew Brees last year. Now we get to see how Drew Brees looks without Michael Thomas, right?
Yep.
So it's a little bit more nerve-wracking. At least if it was
like
the other way around.
Other.
Right. If it was the other way around, I knew like Thomas will still somehow get production. But there's a chance Brees doesn't. So we'll see. And, of course, their matchup is against the Las Vegas Raiders. They got their first win in Las Vegas last week, 34-30 against the Panthers. Not really that much of an accomplishment. But Josh Jacobs went off. He's starting for you. You're keeping him in. He's a stud. Receiver. You have Bryan Edwards. I know you've been kind of questioning.
I was shocked by this. I was very surprised because I almost put him in a couple leagues. From everything that was – yeah, me too. I was hesitant because he's got a lot of hype coming out of camp, and it's like a quiet hype almost, which is weird to describe. Yeah. But it means something that he's starting off as the number 2 receiver. Like they immediately lined him up out wide against Ruggs. The target share is a little scary here.
Yeah.
I'm still going to hold out hope because I don't know, something about this is going to sound really dumb, especially considering that we've done an entire show talking facts and logical reasons, but he's just got a name that to me just sounds like a guy, you can picture, but he's got that I don't know, something about the name Bryan Edwards just to me sounds like
a pro football player,
Yeah, it's just like a guy that you can be like, oh man, like Bryan Edwards last week, like something. Which,
right.
That's not a concrete reason to go off of.
Well, I feel like because you had like other Edwards, like guys who were like receivers who were kind of similar names.
Very true, and that could be maybe he's playing off my nostalgia there a little bit.
But unfortunately,
I think he's a stash, and eventually he's going to start going off. So just leave him on your bench until that happens.
I agree.
Just wait until it happens, even if you miss that first week, whatever. When it happens, you'll feel better about it.
Or we already saw Henry Ruggs get banged up. What happens if he's not a big receiver? What happens if he gets hurt again? Bryan Edwards is in. So
yeah, he's a speedster, and it's.
If you're worried that like Nelson Aguilar is going to be this guy stealing shit, trust me, he's going to fade the fuck out within 2 weeks. All right, I can guarantee that right now. I'm not worried about that from that perspective. Although I don't think you can start any of these receivers at this moment at all. Ruggs, Edwards, stash.
Yeah.
Renfro, I was a little surprised. I thought he would have a little bit more too. And I know a lot of people have him. I mean, to a degree, 16%. But if there was a better option, he'd be one I'd drop. I would rather keep Edwards over Renfro if I was going to choose of the two.
And then, until further notice, Waller's the guy in this offense. It's going to be the Waller and Jacobs show.
Yeah, you have to start him every week. Even in a 7.5, he's going to be the featured guy for Derek Carr. I absolutely agree with that.
Don't touch Derek Carr in fantasy. I don't think there's any
in fantasy.
Unless Ruggs and Edwards both wake up. Yeah, unless Ruggs and Edwards both wake up, I don't see that being it. I think they're very comfortable giving the ball to Josh Jacobs here.
That Saints defense put up 18 points last week, had 3 sacks, 2 picks, a fumble, a block kick, and a touchdown, a pick 6 against Tom Brady, who had Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, and O.J. Howard and Rob Gronkowski. This team has Darren Waller, Nelson Aguilar, Henry Ruggs, and that's pretty much it. Saints defense is a start this week. Got to go with them. Their defense is really good, and they'll go. I think to me they're my start of the week actually. Josh Jacobs scares me because he is good, but that defense is much better than Carolina's. Much better. So
I agree.
Wow. So that is all of the matchups, man. That was a mission.
That's a first rise and fall pod. Yeah, but I mean, goddamn, was that a fun ride?
It was a hell of a ride. I think there's a lot of good content here. My goal for the listeners and the viewers and anyone who's going to happen to come across this podcast and this YouTube video is we're going to be providing you this content here along with a lot of stats that are going to be integrated. We're going to be shifting the show a little bit each week, kind of trying to integrate some things to make it a more streamlined, maybe a little bit more consistent on the time and so forth. But I'm going to try my best to make sure that I have certain pieces here edited that you guys can, if there's a certain team that you want to look at, because I know not all of us have players on all these teams. There's a lot of teams I talked about here that I don't even have players invested in. So I get having to scroll through this would be a pain in the ass. This is just for your viewership today by Saturday, because let's face it, there's not going to be many viewers on the first one. But hey, we got to start somewhere, man, So Saturday is going to be the first day that this is going to go live. That's what we're aiming for. I'm going to do some sound editing and some things to help hopefully make the podcast easier to listen to for people that come across it. Right. So instead of it being a 3-hour thing that you have to scan through just to get to the Saints Raiders game, you'll be able to see Saints versus Raiders. You click on that, and that's our whole analysis of the Saints Raiders aspect of the show. The YouTube video, I don't know if we could do that on YouTube. I'm not particularly sure if we can. Maybe what I'll do is I'll provide the times within the link of the video so you guys can do this easier. I'll figure out some way to make this easier for you guys so you guys can enjoy the content that we're providing and get to what you need to listen to. So, Matt, 4th and 1 pod at 4th and 1 pod on Twitter.
Correct. That's the number 4 THANDWON, not ONE. WON.
We winning on this pod. Okay.
Yeah. Thanks. Yeah, check us out, part of the YMI Nerd Network. Take a look. We're on just about everything.
Hey, man, I really do appreciate you coming on today, especially.
Dude, absolutely happy to be here. Episode. Yeah, man, definitely looking forward to next time.
Absolutely. And listen, we're gonna try to do this every week for you guys. Again, I'm gonna try to make this easier on Matt and the listeners, and we'll try to scale it down and see what we can do this week. The video will be posting along with our stardom sit-em at the end of the week on Saturday before game time every single week for the rest of the season. We're going to try to really be consistent and try to, once we get the data, I'm really excited to see maybe next week how we can kind of compare some of the stuff and work on, really get some true analytics to work with for this season.
I'm so excited to make charts, and I never say that. I want to see some of these line graphs, what's going to happen, like who's consistent, who's not. Definitely got some ideas on what we can do here. And one of my favorite things when it comes to fantasy football is consistency ratings. I think that's huge, and it goes entirely overstated or understated. Which one am I looking? Whatever. Either way, what I'm saying is hopefully some of these analytics, if I know Dave, and I think I do pretty well, are going to come pretty big into play with that. You're going to be able to see a lot of things that you wouldn't normally be paying attention to, that you weren't normally ready for. Dave over here is on top of it. So
I mean, listen, 100% right. That my goal is to provide you guys with a different perspective on fantasy football. I know it's going to be similar to some degree because fantasy is fantasy, right? We have very similar, conclusions that we come to that some of the experts, but I feel like the way that we're going to really do this is try to break it down from a team perspective, not just the player perspective. And I think that doesn't get done enough. Maybe they'll sprinkle in, the defense does this and they're this against the rush and this and this, but every week a matchup is very different. And sometimes just looking at these matchups from a game by game basis can really give you an understanding of like, hey, what have these teams been, doing from a week to week? What did they do last week that was really good that might work here? I think we identified a couple people that even we weren't really, we didn't even realize that, hey, we're pretty high on these guys. I think I convinced myself on one guy there at the end, but
there's a few guys I just went in while we were talking. I'm like, I'm going to put in a waiver request right now.
Yeah. I mean, I still have to do my waivers. Honestly, I don't even know I think I'm just going to let my waivers go. I don't even know if I'm going to do them, but I got to do it after this episode. Yeah, I got to do it. But hey, listen, thank you so much for joining the show. The first official fantasy football, Rise and Fall fantasy football podcast. For me, my name is Dave Sarner. I am the host of the Rise Football Fantasy Football Podcast. You can find me at Rise and Fall Football Pod. That's Rise and the letter N, Fall Pod. On Twitter, I will be providing the YouTube link later in the week that will be connected to that Twitter account as well. It should be YouTube/Rise and Fall Podcast, but I'll double check if I put football in there as well. I'm not sure if I did just the whatever it may be. So thank you guys for joining us. Matt, again, thank you so much for being on here, man. I look forward to speaking to you next week.
Absolutely, dude. And I do have one quick question for you. Is that a decked out in red child from The Mandalorian on the back behind you?
So this is This is a Sith version of Baby Yoda. A canvas painting. Canvas painting, that is.
It is pretty dope. And the trailer for season 2 just dropped today, and we need to talk about that.
Listen, I'm willing to spend a couple extra minutes here and we pause and start again and talk a little bit. It's up to you. I mean, it's late.
Ahsoka Tano, we need to. No, I actually do have to. I really. Oh God, it's 11:39. No, I would love to do this, but yeah, it's.
Why don't we do this another day? I'm just gonna say Sasha Banks. Excited to see her. I think she's a Jedi, from what I saw. I'm pretty excited to see how she's gonna look in there too. But looks good. I can't wait.
Yeah, I'm very pumped. Very, very pumped.
All right, awesome, man. Well, thank you so much for joining us, guys. Thank you for listening to the episode. And again, if you guys win your games because of our advice, you definitely let us know. Retweet us. And down the road, I would love to see some people that got some good steals on the free agent wire, especially.
Hell yeah.
All right, so until next Tuesday, we will be back here on the Rise and Fall Football Pod. Thank you very much for joining us.
Have a good one, everyone. Dude, solid, man. Great show.
Hold on.
Oh, sorry. You're like, hold on. I'm like, oh, yeah, great show.